What is up, everyone? What is up? How's it going for Sunday for everyone out there? Sup, Hans? Sup, Dev? Imagine DDoSing yourself. Well, I managed to do it. Insert DJ Khaled. Congratulations, you just played yourself. The funniest part is, I didn't realize it had been going on for so long until I actually spun up that logging server and it was able to dig into the logs, and it's like, wait a minute! What's up, Dawn? How's it going? So we're gonna see how well the stream does. Hopefully, we don't have it crap out again. I'm hoping that we got everything resolved. We tracked down, like, everything. Look, we got better firewall, better modem. Turns out it was over 1,000 connections on the upload in the peer-to-peer connections on the Monero node. That was all fighting for the upload on a 3 megabit per second pool that was just backing up in the queue. So over time, it would just fill up that state table in cache. So that's why it wouldn't happen immediately. It would be something that would build up to like the middle of the stream. And that's why when you looked at it, it was like, oh, your latency and everything else looks fine. Oh, everything else looks fine in the network. You're not clogging the network and, yeah. So the logging server paid off. Yeah. Hooray. So we're going to see how well this works today. See if it goes derpy again. But that's what the logging server's for. We'll catch all of that. I've been working on this weekend on the home network, slowly upgrading things and improving it. As you know, I've been working towards zero trusting the whole network. I've made some accomplishments so far. So I managed to do a couple of things. It doesn't sound that great, but listen to me when you'll understand how I got it done. So the Elgato key lights that I have, if you don't know how those work, those are IoT devices that run over Wi-Fi. So when I hit my dashboard and I, say, hey, turn, up or down the brightness over here, that goes through my Wi-Fi connection to the device. Well, they were on the same VLAN as the rest of my devices. Now, in a zero-trusted network, you don't want your IoT devices on the same, trusted network, so you want to throw them on a more hardened network. So I threw them onto the IoT network. Now, a lot of people, if you've dealt with IoT devices, will say, well, that ends up being a pain. How do you get it to work? Well, I dug into Elgato's documentation, found out the ports it works over, but then also set up Avahi, which does MDNS so that way it can replicate the calls on the VLANs, and that also let my printer get set up, so the printer's now on the IoT network, which eventually will move over to its own VLAN network down the line, and so now all the IoT devices that I had on the same network because I couldn't figure out how to get them off the same network are now off the trusted network. Now the only devices on the trusted network are laptops and phones and desktops. We'll still have to 802.1x and put certs and stuff like that, but that's going to be down the line. Question, is it better to use one VM for multiple services containers in my home lab or use LXC? Better is subjective. It depends on your goal. So, generally speaking, in a zero-trusted fashion, you want to have one container per service for security reasons, to minimize movement. But that also makes things more complex, because then you have to have things talk to each other, all the different microservices, things like that. Having one VM does simplify things, but then it also will increase resources if you need to have multiple sources. I haven't played with LXC much myself. I've done more Docker and just straight VMs. I hear good things, I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Haven't found a need for myself to do LXC yet, but I'm sure eventually I'll come up with something. Just haven't gotten around to it yet. Although I do have 3 Raspberry Pis on my desk right now that I've been slowly getting staged to be put in my rack. I was trying to get this Pi over here to be my Unifi controller, but I found out this little stupid adapter over here is a piece of shit, and was giving me issues with syncing. So I'm waiting for another one to come in from StarTech, which should fix it because it has UASP and this doesn't, which is USB attached SCSI protocol. That should fix my F-Sync issues I was having. The idea being that I'm going to have this Raspberry Pi 4 over here boot off of this SATA SSD over USB 3 rather than an SD card, because Unifi does do little read-writes that would kill an SD card a lot faster, so it'll be more reliable for my Unifi controller that's ultimately going to be replacing the Unifi Cloud Key Gen 2 that exists, but the battery died inside of, and they're next to impossible to repair. So, yeah. So that controller is slowly getting built. This is going to have Ubuntu 2404, and this is on a Raspberry Pi 4GB. I even got nice little black labels so that it looks nice and pretty, and I even put a label on there so I knew which one was which. And then I got 2 of these guys over here, which are my 2GB ones that I had laying around. These are all power over Ethernet. These are going to be my twin gate nodes. These are going to be my zero trust network access, so when I'm outside the house, I will be able to access my network over these guys. They should allow up to gigabit connectivity. They're realistically probably like, what, 700 to 800 megabits, especially when I get high split working. And they'll have high availability, so they'll do load balancing, so let's say Yitz needs to access it while I'm at the same time, it'll load balance between the two, or if one happens to go down, the other one will be able to pick up. And I did get the networks hardened, which I will show you the rules in a sec if you haven't been on the GitHub, and if you haven't been on the Discord and Matrix server. Why don't people use flash drives as storage for their home labs? Because flash drives are not very good when it comes to read-write. If you are reading and writing consistently off of a flash drive, it will kill a flash drive. Same thing with an SD card. SD cards are not very robust devices. They're very convenient devices to store data, but they're not robust. They will wear out fast. If you have a device like a firewall that's not reading and writing very much, they're fine. But I would not use flash drives in critical things. They're only really just for transferring things. I go through so many SD cards with 360 camera read-write issues. Yeah, and when you do get SD cards for things that need read-write, generally I go for the Samsung Endurance. The Samsung Endurance ones, yeah, like these. I don't know if you can see it. The Samsung Pro Endurance. These actually have a much, much longer life cycle. I keep one of those in my dash cam and things that need long life cycles. So Kara, if you end up replacing SD cards a lot, look at the those. Oh, what are those? These are my Raspberry Pis. These are little computers. These two will be my Zero Trust network access nodes, as I'm Zero Trusting the house, and I got rid of my VPN. This will replace my VPN. So I won't have an exposed VPN in my house. You'll have to log in through TwinGate, and then this will be the Unifi controller, and they'll all be rack mount. I got the rack over here somewhere. I need to clean up this area. I'll get to that once I finish all my little projects. From a financial audit perspective, what's the most important question to ask a client about cyber? Well, without knowing the specific you're asking, generally it's how much do your operations usually cost you, and how much money do you usually make in revenue? And if you grind to a halt, how much money would you actually lose per minute, per hour, per day, per week? Because if you have a cyber incident, that's what you need to think about. Like, think about Stryker, what they're going through right now. They had all their devices wiped. Not malware, wiped. They are effectively ground to a halt. They need to stop thinking about how much money they're spending, but how much money they're preventing from being lost. Now, there is a question of acceptable losses. That's gonna vary between each business. Wait, what happened? There's a business called Stryker that had, what was it, about 200,000 devices wiped in a form of cyber terrorism, allegedly tied to the Iranian conflict. Not malware, not ransomware. They got access and they wiped their stuff. Like endpoints, servers, infrastructure, just finito, gone. Yeah. Oh, the Stryker thing, the silver lining of this, if there's one positive thing out of this tragedy to come out of the Cheeto-in-Chief going after Iran, is that it has definitely made people aware of the value of cybersecurity. Because now that Stryker's had that incident, it's made a lot of businesses aware of just the value of cybersecurity. So I wouldn't be surprised if the budget's already set right now, but in the coming months, you're gonna see more positions opened up in cybersecurity and people reevaluate the priority there. How about a SanDisk, Chief? Are they good brands? SanDisk is fine, but they'll still burn out after if you do too many read-writes. It's just the issue with Flash, period. You haven't cybered since the 90s. Well, back then it was InfoSec. Yep, even see fake name brand ones, even on trusted selling sites, not just TikTok. That's why I go to Micro Center to buy all of my, SD cards. Pretty much, I go to Micro Center and buy all of my SD cards and flash drives. That's where I go. Well, I'm not seeing any dropped frames, Vampire, so that might be on your end. They wiped personal phones, too. Yep. Wait, what did the company even do? Medical technologies, and I think they also did defense stuff and all that. They did a bunch. Is it possible to make a to-go backpack that has a homemade untrackable Wi-Fi thingy? If radio, it's not untrackable. I'm just gonna make that very clear. It may be harder to track, but it's not untrackable, because radio, by definition, is emitting radio, radiation. So you'll be able to pick that up. So anyone with a software-defined radio and can tune in and can actually triangulate the radio position of that. There's people that do that for fun. It's called fox hunting. Now, as far as, like, Wi-Fi on the go, we've talked about this before. You can use LoRaWAN in a halo aspect to get Wi-Fi over several miles. They can get about 6 megabits per second. Yeah. And did you hear that apparently Starlink is opting people in automatically to collect your data? Is it my end or is stream buffering? No, it's your end. I'm still getting all green. I have yet to drop a frame on my end, knock on wood. They served you as military, easy target. Yeah. Chief of Shadow banning you. I have banned you to the Shadow Realm. People implement AI to manage their house light and other stuff, which I highly don't recommend. Yeah. I have an AI personal server that I have in its own VLAN that can't talk to anything else, but I use it as my own little LLM server. And so, like, when I make my notifications when I go live here, my Docker that runs my social media announcement bots talks to my Olama server, which then processes it, feeds it back to the Docker, which then posts it to Blue Sky, Mastodon, Discord, and Matrix for Kick, YouTube, and Twitch. And I'll be making another AI server for my honeypot. I'll be tying an LLM into the honeypot there. That should be fun. There's apparently ways you can tie an AI into that for high interactivity honeypots that basically could adapt to the attacker, and then I can collect the information off of that, feed that into the sim, have that information go into Wazza and such as that, lock down the firewall based on the information they're having and all those analytics, and then feed that out to MISP for IOCs and IOAs. Sure, you guys military. How do people not understand the value? Well, people don't understand crap. That's the problem. Look, people unfortunately don't understand crap until it's too late. People are unfortunately, on average, complacent and lull themselves into convenience. The amount of times that I have people that say, oh, what does it matter? My data's already out there anyway. What point does it make to secure myself? And then it gets worse for them because they don't do that. You haven't heard there's a service on, HyperOS that runs under root by default. Expertise do you have in cybersecurity? I recently followed you and love your account. I'm a senior cybersecurity engineer. Been in the field for quite a few years. Got my CISSP just for fun. Did that 2 years ago. But yeah, that's my background. Been doing that for a few years. If you go to my GitHub, you'll see there's quite a few cybersecurity related projects that I'm working on. Building a whole SIM-SOAR, security information and event monitoring, as well as security orchestration, automated response, and I'm building a NOC/SOC component, network operations center and security operations center. I haven't fully fleshed it out well enough to talk about it. There's still quite a few pieces that I want to get into. I've talked a little bit about the NOC side with the Unifi video I put up on YouTube, I think last week. But yeah. Give the dogs treats and the 4 other from the other streams. If they'll come. Ari! Barack! Ari, Barack, you want a treat, you little dickheads? They may be outside. Stream is fire on my own screen. Okay. Isn't ham radio another type of radio for communication can be easily tracked? Anything that has a radio signal can be tracked. It's a radio emission. It doesn't matter. It could be a Wi-Fi signal. It could be a cell phone call. It could be your little walkie-talkie you bought off of Toys R Us. Does Toys R Us even exist anymore? If it can transmit a radio wave, it can potentially be tracked. Bluetooth, whatever. Yeah, Sterling is basically having a defense contractor ISP. Once a company and cybersecurity sign government contract and make them a target. Yeah, no, yes and no. We prefer for cybersecurity Mac or Windows. What do I prefer? Tin cans. Commodore Amiga. In all honesty, I'd probably lean more towards Microsoft Windows because Mac is a pain in the ass to administrate in terms of an enterprise. I've had to deal with it. It is a huge pain in the ass. And I say that as someone that has to use a Mac at work. At least at my new job. Does it work? Yes. But there's so many pain points I have to jump through. Do you have an affiliate with Linode? I do not. I just have their t-shirts back from when they were regular Linode. I've had this shirt like 8 or 9 years, I think. You know, any exploits iPhone? I haven't done iPhone shit in a while. How's school going? It's going. I'm like 63% done with my bachelor's, but I gotta do all the bullshit things inside of WGU that basically make me waste my time. Like right now I have an introduction to scripting and foundations class that's been pissing me off. Because they actually had me run through lessons in Coral. Why? I'd rather fucking do the whole class in Bash and Python. What motivates you? ADHD. What motivates you? Well, cocaine. No, I'm kidding. Are you good with Ansible? Haven't really done much with Ansible. Haven't really had the opportunity to really tinker with it much. I keep meaning to want to put it in the lab, but I just haven't found a reason to yet. I might get around to it eventually, but right now it's so expensive to get any hardware because of RAM. I mean, I need to get at least 32 gigabytes of RAM for my next box that I want to build, because I need to build a box with two 10 gigabit NICs, 8 to 12 CPU cores, physical cores, and at least 32 or preferably 64 gigs of RAM, so I can build a Zeek box. For the last thing I think I won't have in my entire my home security lab system that I'm trying to do, which is annoying. And it's because my logging server is a little bit anemic for all that. It works great for everything else. It's just if I'm feeding all of the data to it from the rest of the network for analysis, both from the WAN and all the east-west traffic going on, it ain't gonna keep up, especially once I do the 10 gigabit per second upgrade. That server could have been a new car. Actually, no, it's not that expensive. It's the RAM that would just be more expensive. You're talking... The RAM alone right now would be, at this price, $1,400. But, if I manage to find a DDR4 ECC box... One of my buddies gave me a couple of DDR4 ECC RDIMMs over here. These are 64 gigs total, 232s. So I don't know why everybody's like, it could be a new car. No, it's not that expensive. Toys R Us Canada is a Canadian-owned and operated company now. Huh. So Toys R Us does still exist. What's the thing about Macs you wish they could change? How much time you got? They need to build it more for an enterprise so that you can actually administrate them properly. The commands and the shortcuts and commands are freaking weird on it. Yeah. As a beginner to cybersecurity, where should I start to teach myself or learn more about this stuff? Always start with networking. Networking is always where I will tell people to start, because networking is the foundation for all IT and cybersecurity to understand. And if you don't understand networking, you're going to run into a lot of problems. So, if you want to home lab it, pfSense. You can either buy one of their boxes, or you can build one yourself, and you don't need super high-end hardware. Like, if you get a box with, like, at least 4 gigabytes of RAM, and a Core i5, and even 32 gigabytes of storage, more than enough to start. If you get 16 gigabytes of RAM, and make sure you get at least 2 Intel-based network interface cards in there. Like, my Intel IGB I had in here before, in my last server. But, yeah. Do that. If you get 16 gigabytes of RAM, and even still that Core i5, or especially Core i7, you'll have equivalent processing power to Enterprise. Like, to give you an idea, my old firewall that I just upgraded from, that now became my logging server, is an 8-core Intel Atom Server Edition at 2.2 gigahertz, which had 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory, a 240 gig SATA SSD just because it was cheap, and that thing was great until I started throwing Suricata, the IDS IPS, for like 13 different VLANs, and then it likes AVX2, so then I upgraded to a Xeon D, which is a quad core with hyperthreading, and I only bumped it to 32 gigabytes of memory, and it's still sitting at a calm, like, 30% memory usage. Did you explain yet how you DDoS yourself? So I kind of got into it on the last stream, but basically, so I run a Monero node on my network, and this is what we think was the result of all of my intermittent streaming issues I was having for quite a few months. So I ran my own Monero node for a few years now, and I do that because, well, I use Monero cryptocurrency, and I have it running over Tor, so I can basically use it with a Torified wallet, so wherever I'm in the world, I just connect over Tor back to my wallet on that VLAN, and then I can use that node and then send or receive Monero. Cool. Don't ever have to carry around the full blockchain. Anyway, it has to continually sync, so it always has peer-to-peer nodes. And because when you first set it up, it's uncapped. And in most networks, that's not too much of an issue. So I was getting about 1,000 or so connections, which on most networks would not really be noticeable. However, when you're dealing with streaming, which is a real-time broadcast, because I set traffic shaping up on the network a few months ago to prioritize RTMP so that streaming would go through a little bit better. The problem was, I gave the upload for Monero 3 megabits of upload, which would be more than enough, except for the fact that I didn't adjust the peer count in the Monero node itself, so it was still uncapped. So it was connecting to 1,000 peers that it would still, like, basically be through like a funnel, all like clogging there, that the buffer would get bloated, and then it would all back up. So after a while of streaming, the buffer would just fill up, and then it would just not like it, and it would prioritize what it could. So and that was because I forgot to reset the node to do the optimized setting. So now it's got 32 connections inbound and 16 outbound, instead of the little over 1,000 it was doing before outbound. What office software do I use? LibreOffice. And Microsoft Office, but mostly LibreOffice. I still have to use Microsoft Office because there are documents that are sent to me that are formatted to really only work in Microsoft Office. Yeah. At that rate, you'll finish your bachelor's before I finish my master's. Maybe. My goal is to finish my bachelor's by summer. So the home lab that I'm doing, this SimSource knock, I'm kind of planning to be my capstone for my bachelor's, so I'm already logging and doing all of that stuff and getting the notes assembled as I work through it, with the sole purpose of when I finally do get around to my capstone project, I basically just go, here's the project, there's the GitHub. How'd you get Microsoft Office on Linux? Well, virtual machine and the other computer that's Windows over here. Yeah, I got allergies. It's that time of the year. Do you use Windows to stream? Unfortunately, I haven't sat down to really figure out moving all of the Linux stuff over. I use OBS. I just haven't figured out the Elgato hardware side of it. That's the part I haven't figured out. I've been dealing with higher priorities than all that. And I got the receipt printer. That part would need to be figured out. But I also keep a Windows computer anyway, because I need a Windows computer to do occasional testing. Like right now I'm using this Windows computer also as my Windows node for my WASA testing. We're doing some videos tonight. We'll eventually get back into doing some gaming on Linux. I procrastinated getting a new PC for too long. Now I'm stuck with this 10-year-old thing with DDR3 RAM. That's why I tell people, don't procrastinate. If you really feel like you need a computer, the thing I tell people is, if your machine is at least 3 years old, you can justify getting a new machine. Not saying you need to replace it at 3 years. I'm saying once your machine hits 3 years, if you have the thought of, I should replace this, go ahead and replace it. Don't procrastinate because, like you're saying, you have a 10-year-old machine. Now you're stuck in an unfortunate dilemma of, we don't know when we're going to move out of this. I saw the trend of all this coming, and I was like, well, I won't be able to get the 9950 X3D like I was planning, because 64 gigs of RAM for DDR5 is way too much when I wanted to upgrade, because I was hoping to upgrade around April, May, but obviously that's not happening. So what I did is I said, you know what, my 5950X is perfectly fine for now. I've got 64 gigs of RAM. I at least want to get the GPU I wanted to upgrade to. So in December, I bought the GPU, I got a new power supply, and then I bought the hardware for the AI server that I was planning to build anyway with the 5060 Ti, and then I bought the hardware for the other computer to be the secondary server, which originally was going to be the TTS server, but then I rethought about it, and that's now going to become the honeypot server with LLM capabilities. And then I have hardware for a third computer that I'm probably going to turn into my transcoding server at some point. And then I have a spare GPU in all of this I'm going to send to one of my moderators that does all the clipping and stuff. But yeah, like, I have several friends that are shooting themselves right now because they're like, man, I should have, upgraded the machine. And I have told them, like, dude, told you for a while. If you thought you needed to upgrade your machine, you should have upgraded your machine. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. We don't know if the prices are going to come back to normal in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe never. Maybe this is the new normal. I doubt it's the new normal. But the point being, yeah, I've been procrastinating getting a wife for the past 30 years. That's not procrastination. That's smart planning.
Sorry, Miss Jackson.
Your Orbic device is coming tomorrow. Nice. Yeah, I got 2 of those. I have my regular everyday one I use as a hotspot that also has the Ray Hunter built in. Oh yeah, before we get into the videos, I wanted to show you all this because I'm working on the zero trusting. Did not mean to turn the light off. So if you didn't see in the Discord and the Matrix servers, which by the way, y'all are more than glad to join, this is the VLAN that I built out for the Twin Gate nodes that I'm going to be putting out for the Zero Trust network access. So I at least got that part planned out. So we have an alias set up for the Twin Gate connectors. Once they get connected, I'll put those in as a static assignment. And then we have the Twin Gate networks. Those are the networks that they'll have access to. Those are an alias, so I can go in and modify the alias whenever. The ports that they'll be allowed to have access to on said networks. They'll only be able to get SSH from the 2 trusted networks. There's a physical config network. If I ever go to the rack, I can jack in and do some things. It doesn't have internet access. It literally just has straight config access. And then these are all rejections. So no admin access to the pfSense admin portal. No access to the critical networks over there. That's the IPMI, the storage, the network hardware VLANs, all of that. No east-west traffic to any of the other VLANs, and then only traffic out on 80 and 443 to the Twin Gate connectors, so they can do cloud, access the Twin Gate cloud and get updates. And then everything else, default deny. And everything's logged on that network. Passing over to the SIM. No admin access. Does that mean no Docker? No admin access means no access to the pfSense admin console. So they can't log in. So imagine if someone compromises the Twin Gate node itself, because that's going to be one of the few things exposed to the internet. They wouldn't be able to go log into my pfSense from that network. Not at SSH, not at any of the ports that you could normally log in. It'll just get a hard reject. Which is more easy to learn, CrowdStrike or ESET? They're both the same amount of difficulty to learn, but CrowdStrike is more capable, having used both. So, but yeah, you want, it's called Zero Trust for a reason. You give it as little trust as possible. And the Twin Gate, nodes will be using Twin Gate themselves on Docker. So this is all Dockerized on Raspberry Pis themselves. Alright, let's see. Where am I? Okay, where were we at with our videos and everything? Thanks, Vampire, for telling me where I was. I turned my PS4 into a Steam machine with Catchy OS. Still haven't used Catchy. I'm not one for distro hopping anymore. I did that years ago.
Valve just
bitch.
broke our hearts and announced that the much anticipated Steam Machine is now delayed until the first half of 2026. Hopefully, but this is Valve we're talking about. But it turns out we don't have to wait for the Steam Machine, because I managed to build one out of a 10-year-old $70 PS4. Real quick if you're new here, hey, I'm Coulter, and on this channel we cover console modding, janky PC.
Consoles are basically PCs. Yeah, pretty much. Consoles have basically been PCs since the original Xbox. The original Xbox, a lot of people don't know this, ran on a Pentium 3. A Pentium 3 and 64 megabytes of RAM. And then the Xbox 360 was a Power PC. The Wii was a Power PC. The PlayStation 3 was a cell processor, which was basically, more or less, an IBM Power PC. With extra steps.
Builds and other related nonsense. So if that sounds like you, be sure to subscribe down below and help support the channel. So if you catch the last video, we covered how to exploit a PS4 in 2026. And in my particular case, I exploited my firmware version 9 using the web plus USB exploit method. And thanks to a buddy in the Discord, there's actually an even easier exploit that I discovered that works on my PS4, and we'll cover that a little later in the video. But before we get ahead,
Now, kids, remember, exploiting your consoles, totally fine. Exploiting things like Jeffrey Epstein, not okay.
ahead of ourselves, Coulter, how are we going to turn the PS4 into a Steam Machine thing? Funny you should ask, but the short answer is that the PS4 homebrew community is freaking awesome and has been hard at work making Linux run on the PS4 for a number of years now, to the point where there's even
Hold on, I gotta turn a fan on. It's a little warm over here. It's that weird time of the year where it fluctuates, and one day it's cold, one day it's hot.
a delightful guide on how to get Linux up and running on the PS4, which I'll link in the description. And the author of said guide went so far as to make a performant version of CachyOS that runs on the PS4. I'll use the word well a little loosely here, but it runs well. Or in his words, doesn't run like crap. But the idea is that if we can get Linux running on this x86 based 10-year-old PS4 hardware, and then we can install Steam for Linux, then we've effectively turned this into a surprisingly capable Steam machine. And
Here's the funny thing. Sony's historically had Linux PlayStation kits they've sold for years. We did some prior content on this. Linux PS2 kit. Yeah, see? You could actually buy a kit for the PlayStation 2 back in the day and install Linux on it and use it as a full computer. We've talked about this. We've watched videos on it. So, technically speaking, I know a lot of people are like, wow, this is amazing! But I'm like, this is kind of just doing what has historically been done for PlayStation. And here's the other thing. If you don't know this, Sony is actually using basically FreeBSD. Like, no joke. Like, you could actually go look up on the FreeBSD mailing lists and everything, and you'll actually see Sony in there in chats, contributing stuff and giving feedback on different things. Really, PS3 OS had Linux support out of the box. Yeah, it had the other OS feature. The fat PS3s did. There was a period of time when I remember the Air Force, the United States Air Force, actually bought 10,000 PlayStation 3s to actually use as a supercomputer. No joke. Actual thing. Look it up.
performance testing we get into later might actually surprise you a bit. But before we start downloading a bunch of files and formatting drives and all that, the first thing we need to do is A, make sure your PS4 is currently exploited, which, like I mentioned, you can refer to my last PS4 modding video for the finer details of that process. But once you get to the web exploit step, assuming you're on a supported firmware version, like I said, mine is 9.0, so this works on mine, but if you punch in the web address shown here, you can actually exploit your PS4 and get it into Goldhen without the USB drive, which is sick. It's just web-only exploit. And granted, you might have to like clear your you're caching your cookies and like refresh and try again here and there. And sometimes mid-exploit, it would actually just turn off the PS4, but thankfully, the PS4 didn't die. It came right back up. But whether you use that method or the one we covered in the previous video, once your PS4 is exploited and Goldhen is loaded, you'll want to head over to your settings and system information.
In the final stages of an interview in a company that uses primarily Linux, do you have any tips? Well, it depends on, well, you should ask what Linux distribution they primarily use, what their orchestration is, what their methodology is, how they manage all their software, things like that. Yeah, it's more just about, like, any job, it's more about asking how they do things that shows an interest. A lot of people always ask, how can you show your expertise in a job? And I always tell people, ask questions. When you start asking questions about how you would address certain situations, what your stack is like, and you start asking specific questions about different things, that also has the side effect of letting the employer know you know. So, I mean, yeah, and if you don't know any of those things out already, I mean, you're more than welcome to share. Because, like, saying a company, like, already uses Linux is kind of a broad thing, because it depends, like, I don't know, maybe they're using OpenSUSE, or SLES, or they're maybe using Ubuntu, or they're using Red Hat, or maybe they're an AWS-based company, and they're mostly on AWS Linux. Maybe they're that weird company that's, mostly in Azure and using Linux on there. It's really hard to say without knowing the specifics of things. Want to get a ThinkPad? I'm in between T or P series. Which laptop should I get? Really depends on what what you really want to use it for. Historically, I've done the T series. I think the P series, if I'm not mistaken, is the workstation one. Like, graphic workstation. I could be mistaken. It really depends, again, on your workload. Either way, definitely recommend their on-site warranties. You can get up to a 5-year warranty, and the on-site warranty is killer because you can have a technician come to you to repair your computer. And that's come in handy when a client of mine in the past got drunk in a Mexican resort so hard with tequila, they smashed their power button through the laptop. Don't know how they did it, but Lenovo covered it. They did have to depot the computer, technically, but they got it back in the next day. Yeah, they primarily use Ubuntu. They provide cloud-based services. I have set up my own test lab. Okay. I mean, it's Ubuntu. It's pretty straightforward. Debian stuff. I mean, it's pretty well known. I mean, it's more just about knowing how they orchestrate things and what their expected practices are. Your opinion on OpenClaw. Yeah, isolate the hell out of that shit. Don't let it touch your sensitive accounts. People are getting way too trusting with that shit. Do I want to use it? Yeah. In a VLAN. On another machine. Hard isolated from the rest of my network. With its own accounts. Not touching any of my own stuff. I've set up a server and a client just to try things. Okay. I'm gonna say to UK, some warranty, same day. Yeah. ThinkPad P series or the workstation series. T series or the all-arounder reliability. Yeah, I used to have T series. Is Zorin OS good for privacy? I mean, all Linuxes are good for privacy compared to Windows. As long as you're not installing random crap on there that will give your privacy away. Privacy is more determined by what you do with it. Let me put it this way. I can give you a private computer. But if you log into Facebook and Pinterest and all that crap on your computer, that ain't gonna make you private, is it? So, privacy is more in your hands. Like, could Linux make you more private out the box? Yes, but in the wrong hands, I can make Windows more private than some Linux users. That makes sense?
where you can see your firmware version. And conveniently, Goldhen tells us right there what our Southbridge version is on the motherboard of our PS4. And if you don't know what that means, essentially we just want to know what type of chip Sony used to build your PS4, because they changed it over the years as they iterated on it. In my case, mine is a Belize Southbridge, and I believe the other two are Baikal and Aurora. So all you gotta do is just make a mental or physical note of what your Southbridge type is, because you won't want to try to load a Belize image on a Baikal system. You're just gonna be asking for trouble and black screens and confusion. Next up, we're gonna want to decide where you want to put those Linux files. Technically, yes, you can install.
Everything's vulnerable if it's still accessible. The best you can do is harden it as much as possible. That's where you want to set up reject rules and pinhole things as much as possible. So, yeah. I mean, subnet it, put it on a VLAN, but yeah, it depends on your firewall settings. And then you'll want to have east-west detection with something like Suricata, maybe Zeek on top of that for inspection. But then you're going to want to also have further analysis and understanding, like, this is what I do with my random crap. I can show this. This is what I'm tinkering with. So, this is my home lab. This channel is going to be blown away when I'm done with it, but this is where I'm sending my alerts right now. There's nothing in here that's sensitive. It's all just critical file changes, you know. I'm seeing if there's files changed, and then it gets sent to VirusTotal to make sure nothing's, you know, malicious. Things are getting blocked. I actually had a one of my first threat hunts this morning because I had a potential rootkit. Turned out it was just an unsigned System 76 and NVIDIA module. So.
Linux to the internal hard drive of the PS4, but that drive...
Now, that's nothing. If you want to learn more, go to the GitHub. That is part of the Docker Sim stack. I've got the Docker Sim stack, the pfSense Sim stack, which is specific to pfSense, which has a lot of the rules you're talking about, and then the Wuzza Sim Bridge. No, Wuzza Jump Cloud Bridge, which is for Jump Cloud and Wuzza to be bridged, but not everyone's going to need that one, unless you have Wuzza and Jump Cloud and you want to bridge them.
Is rather slow, like it doesn't even run the internal PS4 firmware very fast, let alone an entire Linux distro. And yes, you could also use an external pen drive or whatever, but the best way to go about it, and the only way that worked for me, was to use a straight up SSD and a dock that supports UAS. You could probably also use one of those external SSDs that you can buy at like Walmart or Costco, but make sure that the dock that encloses the drive inside supports UAS, which stands for USB Attached SCSI. And really what that means is that when a dock supports UAS, when that drive is connected, the computer, or in this case the PS4, will be able to talk to the drive as if that drive is connected directly to the motherboard, because we don't want the dock getting in the way and throwing confusing signals at the PS4, because it's going to be impressive if this thing boots Linux in the first place. And finally,
you know, it's funny. That was literally what I was talking about earlier today with my Unifi node over here, because that's the same issue I ran into with this USB adapter over here. Because I'm trying to get this SATA SSD over here to boot for this Raspberry Pi for the Unifi controller. I'm trying to replace the Cloud Key Gen 2 that the battery died in, but this little piece of shit USB to SATA adapter doesn't have UAS, what was it? What is it? USB attached SCSI protocol. UASP. It's not UAS, it's UASP. There is a P at the end. Protocol.
Finally, before we start downloading some files, we'll just need to change a few settings in the PS4, mostly to ensure that the Linux image doesn't freak out or throw the wrong display settings at us. And so you'll want to force your PS4 resolution to either 720p or 1080, set your RGB color gamut to full, and whatever other settings are currently the most recommended in the Linux guide I mentioned earlier that's linked in the description. And lastly, over in the Goldhen server settings, you want to make sure that FTP server and bin loader are both checked off. Okay, with all that out of the way, now I get to download some files. So to help future-proof this guide, I will refer you to the Linux Linux guide linked in the description, since a website can be updated a lot easier than a video can. And so first on that page, you'll be directed to download the Linux kernel. And the kernel is critical because it handles all the communication between the software end and the actual PS4 hardware. And so that's where our Southbridge comes in very critical, in that you'll want to download the latest recommended kernel for your Southbridge. So in my case, I have a Belize Southbridge, and so I clicked on the latest kernel for that. And then on the GitHub page, made sure I was on the Belize heading, scroll down, and you download the BZ image file for it. You'll probably also see a BZ image _ no firmware option. And honestly, I'm not totally sure what that's about. You can let me know in the comments if you know, but I think it's just for troubleshooting if you have issues or something later.
It just means the firmware is not attached inside of it. Firmware for various different hardwares inside of there. What firmwares, I'm not sure. Some people want to build their own firmwares and then hook them in as modules for whatever reason.
But in my case, the BZ image worked fine. The next thing you'll download is the initram.
Does VPN work nicely with Quad 9 DNS? Well, it's DNS. It's a VPN. You need a DNS with a VPN, so...
MFS file, and that'll be a zip file. Just go ahead and download that and we'll cover what to do with it later. And lastly, the really fun part, especially for any of you that have worked with Linux installations before,
now the question is if you configure your shit right.
There are many flavors of the distro rainbow, and the PS4 Linux scene is no different. There are like at least 12 options to choose from Fedora to Debian to Ubuntu to straight up Arch, and yes, of course, CachyOS, which is Arch but friendlier, which is why we like CachyOS a lot. In this case, I chose CachyOS Lite, which is written by the author of the guide, and they specifically fine-tuned that distro to try and make sure it'd be very performant on the PS4, given that the PS4 is obviously going to be very limited in what hardware resources it has to share with us. Go ahead.
Just remember, whenever you start using Arch or an Arch-based distro, you're going to need the Arch Starter Pack, which is that you're going to have to first go around and tell people that you use Arch. It's a requirement. If you don't tell somebody that you're using Arch every 5 minutes, your body will explode. You also lose the ability to go out and touch grass. You also, just for some reason, don't have the ability to shower anymore. And, yeah, that's the Arch User Starter Pack.
Go ahead and download that distro image, and also make a note of the username and password that will be on that download page. In this case, the default password was 1234, and given that this won't be a very high security system for me, I'm probably just gonna leave that as is. And so with all that download, we finally get to do something with those files. The first thing we need to do is format our external SSD to FAT32, and if your SSD is larger than 32 gigs, which I hope it is because you actually want to have a reasonably okay experience with this, Windows won't let you easily format it to FAT32, but if you open up Rufus and set the boot image to no boot, then it will just let you format whatever size drive to FAT32, which is super sick. Once that's done, go ahead and copy your BZ image over to the root of the SSD, then unzip your initramfs zip file, and inside there there'll be internal hard drive and external hard drive. You want to open up external hard drive and then copy that initramfs over to the root of the SSD. Take note of the file extension it ends in. It'll either be XZ or I think YZ, and then you want to rename that image to psxitarch-.tar.xz or YZ, depending on what it came in, and then place that on the root of the SSD, and the SSD prep portion is now good to go. Now we get to load the Linux payload, which we have, yet again, a couple of options for how to do that. First, there's the web version, where you can, from the PS4's browser, go to any of the URLs provided in the Linux written guide, and then theoretically you can just choose the 1 GB payload for your Southbridge. If no Southbridge is mentioned, then I believe it means it's either Aurora or Belize, so you can just choose that one if you're in doubt. And then it should, after a bit of trial and error, maybe a bit of clearing cache and cookies, successfully load the payload and then reboot the PS4 into the rescue shell. However, I never got that to work, so I had to set it up a little more manual, but once you set it up, you only have to set it up once, and in my opinion, it works more consistently. And so what you do is in the Homebrew App Store, which we downloaded in the previous video, you'll install the app Payload Guest, and then in the written guide, you'll follow the link to the zip file of Linux payloads, download that, and then you'll find a subfolder for your specific firmware version. So in my case, I'm 9.00, so you want the 9.00 folder, not 01, 02, you want the exact firmware version you're on, and then using your FTP client of choice, in my case, case I use CyberDuck. You'll connect to your PS4's FTP server that Goldhen is running for us, which we turned on earlier. And I believe if you go to the Goldhen server settings, you'll see what port it's running on. I think it runs at 2121, and then it's just an anonymous login. But once connected, you'll browse to
Kind of weird, it's running at 20 and 21, okay.
Payload files in there for your firmware version. Then back on the PS4, inside the Payload Guest app, you should now see a big list of payloads, and you'll scroll down to the 1 GB payload for your Southbridge, just like you would have done for the web app had it worked for you. And maybe it did. If so, congratulations. Sometimes this can be a little bit finicky, and I think I had to reboot my PS4 once or twice to get a fresh go at it. I'd reboot, re-exploit, and then run the payload. So make sure you be patient with it, and don't freak out if your PS4 just turns itself off. Sometimes you just gotta hold down that power button for 30 seconds to let it kick off, and then give it a minute, and then turn it back on. But eventually, after a bit of that process, you should be greeted with a Linux rescue shell with a blinking cursor prompt. And if you got there, congratulations, you've gotten quite a ways there, and you're very, very close to the end of the tunnel on this. But real quick, before we move on to the next step, thanks so much to RUI Pro, for sponsoring this video. Their detachable fiber optic display cables and Ethernet extenders are super sick in that they can push a ton of data through them. We're talking 8K 60 Hz, 32.4 gigabit over the DisplayPort, and 48 gigabit over the HDMI. And because you're leveraging fiber optic, you can run that signal either 100, 200, even nearly 1,000 feet. And all you gotta do is just pop the receivers onto the ends of the fiber optic cable, power each end via the convenient little USB cable, and you're good to go. They sent over the DisplayPort, HDMI,
not sure when I would ever need something like that.
And they did not disappoint. So if you're looking for a high data capacity cable solution and or a long range cable solution, then check out RUI Pro's products and link in the description. And on their site, you can use code COULTER for 5% off site wide. So thanks again, RUI Pro, RUI Pro, for sponsoring this video. Okay, so now that we're seeing the Linux shell, you're gonna wanna go ahead and plug in your SSD. I'm told that the USB.
So you had a sponsor and you don't even know how to call them properly by name. Okay.
USB port closest to the disk drive seems to work the best. And then in the other port, you want to plug in your USB keyboard. At this stage, you won't need a mouse, but once you do get in the desktop, you'll probably want to have a little USB hub, preferably unpowered, just to not risk anything, so that you can connect both a mouse and a USB keyboard to the PS4. But right now, we just need to type commands, and that command is install-psxitarch.sh. If you're wondering why I can recite that so well off the top of my head, yes, there's a script over here, but also I typed that command a number of times because, as I alluded to earlier, I tried to get away with an incorrect SSD dock before and had a lot of issues at this step. So hopefully you heed my advice and use a Rego SSD, and especially a dock that uses UAS. But anyway, if all goes well, after you hit enter on that command, you should see a bunch of output just going, because if that's the case, that means the install script is going successfully and is currently extracting a bunch of files onto your SSD, partitioning the SSD up, and basically running through a headless Linux install, which is pretty sick. If you see any sort of error at this step and the install command is not working for you, then definitely take a look at the troubleshooting section of the written guide, and when in doubt, maybe just try a different SSD and dock until you find one that the PS4 can play nice with. And you might try using a command like ls/dev/sda to make sure that the PS4 can at least read the contents of your drive. But anyway, assuming that your install is now cruising along, at this stage, you can go ahead and hydrate, get a coffee, go pet a dog, go for a walk, because this is going to take a minute. But once that's done, you'll see a variety of things. You'll either see a booted Linux desktop, which if so, that's sick, we'll cover that in a second, or you'll be back at the terminal, in which case you should be able to type resume-boot, and then it should boot into the Linux desktop, or you'll type resume-boot and you'll get some weird error, which is what I got, but in my case, I just restarted the PS4, which I think you can do with Control-Alt-Delete at this stage, re-exploited, reran the 1 GB payload, got back to the shell, typed resume-boot, and then up into the Linux desktop I went. I realized I didn't disclaim at the start of this video that this wasn't for the faint of heart, but yeah, this process is a journey for sure. But whatever your path to get here, you should now be seeing a login screen on a Linux desktop running on your PS4, which at this stage, you've won. Congratulations, that is freaking awesome. Although we're not quite done yet, we just need to configure a couple more things, and then we get to play and benchmark this thing. So first off, we'll log in with 1234, and then if you chose CachyOS like I did, you should now see the friendly CachyOS welcome screen, which is lovely. I was pleasantly surprised to A, find that the interface was rather snappy, and B, that my Wi-Fi drivers were working great. So I was able to hop onto my 5 gigahertz network, and it was able to download with decent speeds, which is sick. And so I hopped over to the package manager, and I started downloading Super Tux Kart and Mario with Portals, which if you don't know what those are, you are going to find out in a second. And then over on the All Software tab, I went and downloaded Steam, except after queuing up all those downloads, I did see some error messages. And so if you also see an error message about sandboxing and sandbox installs, all you have to do is open a terminal and use this command to open up a terminal text editor, and then uncomment this line. And then you just press Control-O to go ahead and save and quit that. and that just tells the Pacman package installer to not worry about trying to be in a sandbox when running installs. It's trying to do some secure stuff, but we're running Linux on the PS4, this is not going to be a secure system anyway. So first things first, let's do some native Linux gaming in this thing, and of course
I love how he's like, yeah, we're in Arch, so you're going to already have to modify your conf files. Welcome to the Archway, where you're going to have to constantly be tweaking your operating system. And I know for people that are like, well, yeah, that's the thing with Linux. Do you know how little I have to tweak my Linux operating system? I barely touch the OS itself.
Of course, we're going to choose Super TuxKart for
Yeah, I'm
that,
on Pop
because
OS.
If you don't know, Super TuxKart has been around for like ever. It's written in OpenGL, and in my opinion, it's pretty much the poster boy for what native Linux gaming used to be years ago. Like on my XP laptop running Puppy Linux, you could run Super TuxKart, and it was pretty basic, not really a Mario Kart competitor, but it was still fun, and it's free because it's open source, so shout out to open source. But I was very surprised when I opened it up on my PS4 and found out that over the years, the open source community has added online play and like a Rocket League mode, and so Super TuxKart is like weirdly goated now, so if this intrigues you at all, definitely check it out. But I had a surprisingly smooth experience playing it on the PS4, and it even picked up my PS4 controller, which I connected with a USB cable, but you can also just pair like a regular Bluetooth controller if you hold the PS button and the share button, and then just pair it up and you're good to go, which is wild. So Linux gaming test number 1 was definitely a pass. As for Mario with portals, I have never heard of this, and I really wasn't sure how to play, but apparently it's just the first Mario game, but Mario's got a portal gun, and so I had a delightful time just portaling Goombas out of my way, and then of course I shot Mario into terminal velocity, but instead I shot the portal at a warp pipe and flew myself off the left edge of the screen. But nonetheless, I had a fantastic time with that title, so that's also a big old pass. But I know darn well that the true passion of this audience and my channel is emulating crap on crap that shouldn't be playing that emulated crap. And so obviously we had to play some Mario Kart Wii on this thing, so I downloaded Dolphin, again from the Cache package manager, very handy, just a wrapper for Pac-Man anyway, mapped up the PS4 controller to a GameCube controller, revved up Mario Kart Wii, and it ran a fairly depressing 15 to 30 FPS. Granted, that was with OpenGL, and I was like, what am I thinking? We gotta set this to Vulkan, let's do some research, let's do some clocking, let's do some pre-compiled shaders, da-da-da-da-da, and basically the same thing on those settings. So if you wanted to play Wii titles on your PS4, your mileage may vary, but yeah, maybe stick to 2D titles for sure. It should be noted that at this point, now that I've fully booted into the desktop successfully, I had rebooted the PS4 and used a 2 or 3 gig.
You want a PS4 bad now? I don't know if I'd really recommend it, but,
gigabyte payload, which gives the PS4,
I mean, it's a fun little project, don't get me wrong,
so that we can push it a little bit harder in these games. If you're actually going to try and push your PS4 while it is in Linux mode, definitely make sure you bump it up, but I think 3 gigabytes of VRAM is about the max it can take. So with Wii being an unfortunate sad trombone, at least in my experience, let me know in the comments if you find some better settings for it, but GameCube on the other hand was surprising. I was able to rock some Super Monkey Ball 2 Monkey Target at like between 40 and 55 FPS on the thing, which to me was perfectly playable, and I was having a grand old time and kind of forgot I was playing it on a PS4. Actually, not even that. Playing GameCube through emulation on Steam that's installed on a PS4, all while running over USB. So the fact that we got any playable frame rates in that at all is rather impressive. But finally,
I haven't touched Zorin Pro for 2 years, accepting usual updates. Yeah, the stream is being a little bit weird. I'm trying to see what's going on with it. I'm checking the logs.
the creme de la creme. Let's play some Steam games in this thing, thus completing my dusty PS4's conversion into a Steam machine in 2026. First game up.
Hold on. 1 second. I am poking at the firewall and seeing what's up with the states, because Twitch is going really bad. God, I can't wait until we get high split.
Up is one of my favorites, Retro Kart Rush, which if you don't know is an indie game written in Godot, which runs buttery smooth and is basically the physics that I wish Super Mario Kart for the SNES had back in the day, with proper drift and lots of speed and just some very fun gameplay. And to my delight, it ran buttery smooth on the PS4. I didn't have an FPS counter going, but it felt like a locked 60 FPS, so that's freaking sweet. And so from racing, we move on to first-person shooter. And of course, what's the most ideal first-person shooter to test in this console than Super Noah's 3D Ark, which is basically a skin of Wolfenstein that was centered around Noah putting these animals to sleep that got out on the Ark. I love how delightfully ridiculous it is, but it also ran super smooth, kind of unsurprisingly, but hey, shout out to the developers of Super Noah's 3D Ark, I guess. I will say there were some titles that just straight up wouldn't launch, like BitTrip Beat or I Am Bread, which maybe I could get to launch with a bit of monkeying around with the settings, or maybe the Proton version, although I confirmed the Proton version was set to experimental across the board. And unfortunately because of that, I couldn't quite tell which of these games I was testing were running on native Linux or Windows on Proton. But nonetheless, I did let the intrusive thoughts win, and I was scrolling through my library, and I saw Marvel's Spider-Man in my Steam library, 70 gigabytes on my 128 gig.
Let's see, hold on. It's 213. Give me 1 second. I'm figuring out what's on the network that's chatty. I don't know what's going on with the network. I'm trying to see if it's the ISP or me.
SSD, and I hit download because darn it, that was a title that almost made me buy a PS4 10 years ago, and I was just so morbidly curious to see if we get any variant of that game running on Steam, on Linux, on the PS4 hardware. And so download it went, and probably an hour later, after it finally made it onto the SSD, I hit play, and some things were chugging, and some things were spinning, and I actually got the little like config window to pop up, so okay, maybe this will actually work. And I cranked all the settings down, like lowest resolution, set it to windowed mode, turn off the bloom, turn off anything that sounded at all visually interesting, turn that all off. And I hit play, and it actually loaded the opening credits. One, and then the next, and then the next, and then it faded to black, and the PS4 got loud. And then the PS4 got quiet. And then the PS4 was no more. No, I'm just kidding. It just seemed to like not be able to recover back to the desktop environment, so I had to reboot it. So
Need to borrow a tab over here.
alas, kind of unsurprisingly, AAA games are not quite meant for this setup. But hey, that's why you watch weird channels like this, right? To see people doing things with the hardware they shouldn't be doing. So you're welcome. So the verdict, is this a PS5 killer? Absolutely not. Is it a weirdly functional kind of grandma PC? Actually, yeah. Like, I was able to open Firefox and browse YouTube, and YouTube was slow, but YouTube loaded, so that's cool, I guess. But after you seeing all that I went through to get to this stage, I'm very curious. Would you actually try to run desktop Linux on your PS4? If so, and you think this whole thing was worth the hustle, drop a little penguin emoji in the comments so I can be validated for this endeavor. Or if you think I should just buy a Steam machine when it eventually launches, then drop a controller emoji in the comments so I can justify it to my wife. If you missed my first PS4 jailbreak video, go ahead and check that out here. Check out the Discord and Patreon below if you want to connect with me and the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Hold on, I'm still parsing the logs to see what's going on. Alright, let's see. Welcome to the world of networking, where your issues still happen. Linux mode is going to ban your console. Maybe. But you're on a PS4, so I doubt that matters. Give me 1 second. I'm diving into my network. Which one was that? I wonder... Okay, I think I'm getting closer to... Something's sending a lot of traffic out. Okay. 2, 1, 2. Yeah. Hmm. Let me see. I wonder if... Need to figure out why this is getting dropped frames. Did you get a resume review? Not opening a random Google Doc. Sorry. Alright, hold on. I'm trying to see the traffic shaper right now. And I wonder if... Consider yourself an audiophile. Yeah, I'd say I'm a bit of an audiophile. Why is the stream still being derpy? Could it be the NIC itself on that computer? Just pure congestion over here. Let's see. Okay, we got that going. Do you have any recommendations on JBOD PCIe cards? Well, just a bunch of disk ones. What is it? LSI now is basically the ones that a lot of people recommend. 3ware used to be the one that I used to recommend all the time back in the day. So I think I know what's going on. Hold on. I have to restart that stream over there. Okay, so hopefully that'll catch it up. Should take on Edubuntu. I haven't really seen Edubuntu in a few years. Is that the one that was designed for education? Alright, so I think that should be hopefully catching it up. Wait, why am I sending to Twitch? Okay. There we go. Alright, so I think I fixed it. Spectrum's having issues and I had to work around it. I had to drop kick in the meantime. That was the issue. I'm gonna have to bitch them out later. I really can't wait until I get high split. Okay. So, hooray. Okay. I'm gonna have to rework some,
Phillips and Raf is now chilling in the lab.
Hey, thank you for the follow. I'm gonna have to figure out some ways to work around that. So, I have a traffic shaper currently, I'm just thinking out loud, for when I multi-stream, and I may not have it effective enough, because the problem is I'm working around a 35 megabit per second pipe. And until Spectrum comes in with high split, which will allow me to have symmetrical bandwidth, 1 gig up, 1 gig down, or even I'd settle for 500, 500, or 300, 300. Because the only reason I actually got 1 gigabit is the faster upload for my stuff. VLAN 10, 699, pass the WAN outbound row, okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to create a new pipe with new codel limiters. That's gonna take some more work. Anyway, we'll continue on with the videos and everything now that we figured out what the streaming is. I had to turn the Kick stream off. Sorry to all the Kick users, but they are the smallest part of the audience. Alright, so let's continue on to where we were. Okay, what shorts did you put in? This is how to make bleach.
This is how to make bleach if the world collapsed. Water isn't water anymore. The rivers are zombie soup. Your only towel smells like it grew up in a swamp. And now you need to wash a rag, clean a cut, or sterilize the last spoon you've got. No problem. We're making bleach. Here is what you will need. Salt, water, even if it stinks, a bucket or container, an old car battery, 2 wires, 2 rusty nails. Step 1, no salt. Scrape the bottom of sardine cans, shake chip bag crumbs, or collect the dried tears of your hope. Dissolve that salt in whatever water you have. Step 2, power it up. 1 dead battery, 2 wires ripped from a broken radio, 2 rusty nails. Stick the nails in the bucket, connect them to the battery with the wires. Step 3, wait. Bubbles rise. The smell of an abandoned swimming pool hits you. That's bleach, sodium hypochlorite, born from scrap and stubbornness. Step 4, use it. Don't abuse it. It's poison, not sweet lemonade. Never drink it, never wash your eyes, just a tiny splash to clean water, rags, or cuts.
You know what's amazing about bleach is like the smallest amount in dirty water will clean it. Like,
If the stink
you ever
finally
seen those
fades,
like
congrats.
survival
You turn junk
kits?
into bleach. That's real survival.
What got you on the kick of like all of this, like, you know,
This is how to purify dirty water. If the
I don't know why you decided like all of a sudden like we're gonna have all these survival videos.
Clean sand, not from a cat litter box. Gravel, small stones, not the ones lying around your building entrance, and a regular plastic bottle. Step 1, cut the bottle. Cut off the bottom and turn it upside down. Step 2, make charcoal. Burn clean wood, not trash. Collect the black charcoal pieces and crush them into fine powder, almost dust. Step 3, layer the filter. Layer everything like a cake. Gravel at the bottom, it holds the structure. Then sand, it
Yep.
filters fine dirt. Then charcoal, it removes bacteria, chemicals, and bad smells. And another layer of gravel on top to block bugs, leaves,
So I've actually done something similar to that when I actually camped out in the desert. It's actually very effective.
and whatever's floating there. Step 4, pour and boil. Slowly pour the dirty water through. Let it drip, drop by drop. But that's not all. You must boil the filtered water for at least 5 minutes. Because clear water doesn't mean safe water, it can still have parasites. If the water is radioactive, sorry, nothing can help you there. But if not, congratulations. Now it's safe to drink.
It won't save you from cancer, but
This is how to make bamboo lighter if the world collapsed. Because striking stone against stone takes too long and doesn't always work, while a bamboo lighter is always at hand and lets you start a fire with ease. Here's what you'll need. Sweet potato stems, sugarcane, cotton, grass paper, bamboo, a stone mortar, a round stone, lead, sulfur, camphor, and pine resin. Step 1. Soften. Remove the leaves and soak the sweet potato stems in water for half a day. This will soften them. Step 2. Grind. Place the softened stems into the stone mortar, add a bit of cotton and crushed sugarcane to strengthen the mixture, and grind everything together using the stone. Step 3. Dry and mix. Dry the material under direct sunlight, then carefully knead it with the stone. The warmth of the sun makes the fibers soft and flexible, making further processing easier. Add lead for density, sulfur for ignition, camphor for a fragrant burn, and pine resin for stability. Step 4. Roll. Roll the grass paper tightly
He had to roll like he's gonna be rolling a doobie.
into a tube. This will be the core of your lighter. Step 5. Assemble. Split the bamboo, drill a hole for airflow, make a lid, place the mixture inside. When you open it, fire awakens. This is how to make gasoline if the world collapsed. Gasoline is the core of survival. It runs your car, giving you the ability to run from zombies, and it powers your house for electricity.
Did you know the average elephant makes enough gas in one day to power the average car 20 miles? Did you know that Chief makes enough gas in one day to power the average car probably about 5 miles? I make enough gas to be 1/4 of an elephant. Did you know my dog makes enough gas, Aryeh, to clear out an entire room? He farted the other night, and I swear to God, I woke up. And I'm like, oh God! Oh God!
Here's what you will need. Old plastic waste, a metal container, a smaller container, a metal pipe, and fire. Step 1. Prepare plastic. Collect your plastic waste. Things like
Speaking of which, Ari! Barack! Come here, you dickheads!
shampoo bottles and plastic bags. They are the best. Avoid PVC and polystyrene. They are toxic and will absolutely ruin your gasoline. Now cut your plastic into small pieces and drop them into your metal.
Come here. You dickhead. Come here. Jev. Lamala. Good boy. Good boy. Where's your brother? Usually he comes running. Who are you? Good boy. There's that good boy.
Container. Step 2. Assemble the reactor. Seal the metal container tightly. This is your pyrolysis chamber. Drill a vent hole in the lid and securely attach the metal pipe. Step 3. Construct the condenser. Connect the metal pipe to the smaller container.
Jev. Jev. Come here, you dickhead. He's a good boy. Must be plastiline. So, plastic is kind of interesting because most plastic is basically petroleum based.
Place this container into a bath of cold water. This setup functions as your condenser, cooling the vapor. Step 4. Get the fuel. Set the metal container over a steady fire. As the plastic heats up, it melts and breaks down into vapor. The vapor travels through the pipe, cools in the condenser, and starts dripping out as a yellowish fuel. And that's it. You have just made gasoline. This is how...
Okay, what is this?
He's been in there 8 hours. Hasn't said a word.
I can get him to talk.
I can make him talk.
Oh, God.
Look, man, I already told your partner, okay? I'm not talking. Dude, come on, what are you doing? Oh!
Is he gonna... He made a podcast.
So, robbing the bank and killing two security guards. I mean, that must be pretty hard, right?
Right, no, so it's actually pretty easy.
Furries are taking over the world. Recently,
Furries are taking over the world? They've already taken over the world. Like, furries already run the world. Like, if you don't know this, I'm sorry, you've had your head in the sand. I'm not a furry, but like, if you look around and you work in STEM, you are surrounded by furries. They run your infrastructure. They are your doctors, your lawyers. They are the people in society you depend on.
unusual K-pop group called Basti debuted, and their main feature is that the members perform in full furry costumes. The group consists of 5 characters: a dragon, a tiger, rabbit, fox, and a cat-shark hybrid.
Okay, can you imagine performing in that shit? Like, that shit is already, like, freaking hot, I am told. And, like, look at that. Like, you can imagine. I'm just sweating looking at that.
All of the members are around 18 years old. Their debut single...
Everyone has a king. So here's the thing. Knowing a few furries. Because, look, you work in cybersecurity, you're going to meet furries. You go to cybersecurity, you know that they're furries. But anyway, not everyone that is a furry does it for sexual reasons. I know. At first, when you're like, yeah, that's like a kink, and they're like, no, it's not really a sexual thing. It's just like a whole other thing. I'm like, okay.
Was released online on October 13th last year, and so far it's their only song. But the track has already even been translated into Japanese. It seems that their next step will be trying to win over anime fans.
Okay, so let's see. We got another video from Cold Fusion, AI and war. Because war were declared.
The Wall Street Journal reports that the Pentagon used Anthropic's AI model Claude as part of its operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro.
For the first time ever, the Pentagon is using artificial intelligence to scope targets.
So, you know that the whole, like, Iranian war, this whole thing is the first time that AI has actually been used in a war, and the scary thing about that is there has been a lot of misinformation. Like, it shocks me the amount of times people believe things on social media and don't have critical thinking skills and don't just, like, say, oh, there was this major news event. Maybe I should actually, like, Google to check out that it was, an actual thing. Because there was a rumor, for example, yesterday we were talking in Discord, that I was doing some OSINT on, where allegedly a woman running for Congress in the Republican Party, they said allegedly had a, star account, and turned out to not be true. I had to do some, research, because I'm like, whoa. This is one of those, like, this sounds too good to be true kind of things. So, some of my friends and I, legitimately for research purposes, it's one of the only times we can actually say that, had to figure this out. But, like, back to the point that I'm making is that the thing that concerns me is that AI is being used, and it's spreading misinformation, but it's also capturing people. And Claude wanted to set up ethical guardrails to say we don't want our AI to be used for mass surveillance and to be able to pull the trigger without a human in the loop, which I think is a reasonable guardrail. But apparently, the Trump administration is like, no guardrails. We didn't see Terminator at all! Skynet, good!
Our allies are going to be studying how we're using it here. Data centers were just hit in the UAE.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. By now, there's no hiding it. We live in a world where AI's use in warfare is now a reality. AI was used in at least 2 high-profile instances by the US military, one to capture the Venezuelan president Maduro, and then in a war between Israel, Iran, and the United States. The AI company that supplied the underlying technology to the US military was Anthropic, but tensions began to grow between the two parties. The government wanted them to sign a contract that allowed for autonomous AI weapon control and mass surveillance of US citizens through data collection. While Anthropic did say no to this, they were completely kicked out of any government contracts.
All government agencies to cut off ties with the AI company Anthropic after it refused to agree to the Pentagon's demands on how its tech is used.
And you know, that sole, backbone that they had there is why I am totally okay with shifting more of my AI usage to Claude. I really am.
News was shocking enough, but afterwards, something pretty astonishing happened. In one of the worst cases of corporate optics in history, just a couple of hours after the fallout, Sam Altman said that his company, OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, would step in to do the deal with the US military.
Brother, Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
And once again, as I've said both on Discord and Matrix and Blue Sky and Mastodon and Threads, because I cross-post it, every time I look at RAM pricing, I curse Sam Altman and the fact that his mother didn't swallow.
So the fall from grace is complete for OpenAI. They went from a non-profit company that was meant for the good of humanity, with goals like curing cancer, to a for-profit company that needed investment by any means necessary, to removing the word safety from their mission statement and partnering with the military. The result was an understandable, very public, and very loud boycott of their star product, ChatGPT, with hundreds of thousands and possibly millions unsubscribing from their service. So today, in this massive story, we uncover how AI found its place in warfare only 3 years after going mainstream. How does AI work in warfare? And most importantly, what this all means for us.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
So here's a question. If today we can't trust any of the information ChatGPT generates, and it doesn't understand how car washes work, how on earth could it be reliable for identifying military targets?
Speaking of Claude, I'm having it go through the rules that I had for my traffic shaping. I think I had some things out of order. It saved me about a week of time of going through my rules.
Well, as it turns out, the AI that the public gets isn't the same one that the military uses. Can't say it's surprising though. We know this through an interview with Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei.
We were the first company to make custom models for national security purposes.
So the main differences were both the model itself and the hardware it ran on. Anthropic created a custom model for the military and ran it directly in a data center full of classified information. Anthropic has also recently figured out how to look inside the black box of neural networks to understand and control ethics and behavior internally and mathematically.
These were scientists in this paper did their magic. Get this, they found the specific geometric direction in the model's brain that represents the assistant persona. It just puts a speed limit on the change of personality.
Furthermore, the model is running on dedicated hardware. In this case, 100% of the available compute is there for a single customer, the military. In many cases, it could be a whole data center just for one request. In contrast, as civilians, we're used to using AI systems where capacity is split across hundreds of millions of users. In short, the military setup could be 5 or 6 orders of magnitude more performance per request versus what consumer AI has.
Jeez.
So to be clear, a concentrated computing cluster and specialized data makes military AI way better than what the public has. But even then, it's still not perfect. As Paul Share, Executive Vice President at the Center for New American Security states, quote, AI gets it wrong. We still need humans to check the output of generative AI when the stakes are life and death, end quote. Even Dario himself says the tech is still not there yet.
And I think we are a good judge of what our models can do reliably and what they cannot do reliably. Fully autonomous weapons, there, I actually am concerned that we may need to keep up. It's not, the technology is not ready.
Not ready.
AI.
I think even if, we were ready, I don't think it's an issue. It's an issue of that we will ethically never be ready. Because we're talking about a system that can't quantify human nuance. And you can't quantify a lot of, humanity. You really can't.
Can manage to match the performance of the custom Claude model still remains to be seen. If any of these AI systems get a target wrong, it's a huge tragedy, so there's a real risk here. But as I mentioned earlier, despite the risks, the AI systems have already been used in warfare, so we have to ask ourselves, how exactly does an AI work in war? Striking 1,000 targets in 24 hours in Iran was only possible with a dedicated AI system. That system is called the Marvin Smart System. It was built by none other than Palantir and is powered by a custom version of Anthropic's Claude AI. The system gathers vast amounts of classified data from satellites, surveillance, and other intelligence. For example, the Israeli government hacked nearly all traffic cameras in Tehran so they could monitor who was coming and going, from where, and when. The system pulled in information from 179 sources of data in total. This sea of data is then processed through Claude, which outputs insights after interpreting that data. In the opening days of the war, the system organized and prioritized Iranian targets for military operations in real time. It, quote, issued precise location coordinates and prioritized those targets according to importance, end quote. And that was according to people familiar with the campaign. According to a study by Georgetown University, the system allowed one artillery unit to do the work of 2,000 staff with just a team of 20 people.
Interesting.
The pairing of the Maven system
so basically
and Claude
you're
has
using
created
their
a
own
tool
intelligence
that's speeding up the pace
them.
of war. According to some sources, it's turning weeks-long battle planning into real-time operations. So the fact of the matter is consumer AI and military AI are light years apart. The Maven-Claude hybrid system was also integral in Maduro's capture. Allegedly, Anthropic wasn't aware that their software was being used in the raid. That concern turned into a flashpoint that started the beef between Anthropic and the US government. Emil Michael speaks.
And the trigger point was after the Maduro raid. One of their execs, Palantir, who we buy their stuff through, and asked them, was our software used in that raid? Which is, by the way, classified information. Anyway, so we're trying to get classified information and implying that if there was used in that raid, that might violate their terms of service. It raised enough alarm with Palantir, who's got a trusted relationship with the department, to tell me, and I'm like, holy shit, what if this software went down, some guardrail kicked up, some refusal happened for the next fight like this one, and we left our people at risk? And so I went to Secretary Hegseth, I said this would happen, and that was like a whoa moment for the whole leadership at the Pentagon, that we're potentially so dependent on a software provider without another alternative that has the right or ability to not only shut it off, maybe it's a rogue developer who could poison the model to make it not do what you want, or hallucinate purposefully, or not follow instructions.
The concept of using AI in war doesn't stop with the United States though. NATO signed a contract with Palantir last year, and they have their own version of Maven. So we're going to get to OpenAI and how they play into all of this. But first, since we're on the topic, let's understand the fallout between Anthropic and the US government a bit more. The wild story starts back in July of 2025. At this time, Anthropic signed a $200 million contract with the Pentagon through a partnership with Palantir.
Yeah, but Palantir just, something in my soul just doesn't feel right about them. Whereas, like, Anthropic, I'm not saying they're benevolent by any means. I'm not saying that. But, yeah.
As the partnership progressed, all was not well behind the scenes. The Pentagon started demanding that Anthropic allow Claude to be used for quote, all lawful purposes, end quote, with no private sector restrictions. Keep in mind that the Patriot Act is legal. Spying on Americans is lawful.
There are possibilities with domestic mass surveillance, government buying of bulk data that has been produced on Americans, locations, personal information, political affiliation, to build profiles. And it's now possible to analyze that with AI. The fact that that's legal, that seems like, the judicial interpretation of the Fourth Amendment has not caught up. No one wants to be spied on by the US government. No one wants to be spied on by the US government.
In response, Anthropic wanted 2 safeguards to be written into the contract. 1, no mass surveillance of Americans. And 2, no fully autonomous weapons making lethal decisions without a human in the loop. On February 24th, the US government gave Anthropic an ultimatum: comply by 5:01 p.m. Friday or face consequences. Dario Amodei said no, and on February 26th, he stated, quote, we cannot in good conscience accede to their request, end quote.
At one point, they sent us language that, appeared on the surface to meet our terms, but it had all kinds of language like if the Pentagon deems it appropriate, or to do anything in line with laws. So it didn't actually concede in any meaningful way.
The US government was furious. Hours before the bombing began in Iran, the US government banned their agencies from further using Anthropic's tools, giving 6 months to phase them out. Then, they called Anthropic a supply chain risk to the United States, a label that has never been used before for an American company.
Yeah, that's the part that really worried me. They labeled Anthropic a supply chain risk, which gives, rippling effects to the rest of their potential contracts and such. And they're an American company. So how can you label an American company a risk if the issue isn't foreign influence? Like, if they were infiltrated or running by, if we found out, Anthropic was run by, just throwing this out there, the Russians. Okay, I'll buy that. But this doesn't make sense. Just because a company had an ethical stand on, we don't want our technology used in such a way, that's not right.
It was extremely controversial, and a bipartisan group of senators called it out. And with that, the relationship was frayed. The publication Axios reported on what the surveillance angle of the AI deal would have been. They wanted Claude to analyze data on Americans. That data included geolocation, web browsing data, and personal finance information purchased from data brokers. And now we come to Sam Altman, ever the opportunist. As mentioned earlier, in a baffling move a couple of hours after the fallout between Anthropic and the US government, Sam Altman said that OpenAI would take the deal that Anthropic rejected. He himself called the deal, quote, sloppy and rushed. Over 450 verified Google and OpenAI employees signed an open letter calling their own leadership to stand with Anthropic. So, remember in that recent episode when I said OpenAI was in financial trouble? This deal with the US military changes that. They don't have to worry about their enterprise market share falling from 50% to 25% in 2 years. Now OpenAI has infinite money from the government. Sam Altman announced on X that OpenAI's deal included the same safeguards Anthropic had fought for.
Boo! I just don't like the fact that they're ruining the entire supply of consumer hardware. I don't like that basically Sam Altman is now another welfare queen. Another failed business that's being propped up by subsidies from the US government. That was the word I was looking for.
Quote, 2 of our most important safety principles are the prohibitions on domestic mass surveillance and human responsibility for the use of force, including for autonomous weapon systems. The Department of War agrees with these principles, reflects them in law and policy, and we put them into our agreement. End quote. As the New York Times reported, OpenAI and the government had only been in discussion for about 2 days. With such a rushed deal, it becomes hard to believe what Sam is saying. As CNN put it, quote, "It's not clear what is different about OpenAI's deal with the Pentagon versus what Anthropic wanted," end quote. The public backlash has been severe. It mainly came in the form of the Quit GPT movement.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm doing a quick reload of... I'm trying something on the firewall. I'm flushing the states because I got a new, okay. Maybe. There we go. That was not you guys. That was me. So, I'm going to explain what I was doing. I was working on a new weighted system in the firewall for the streaming issues we were having. Basically, what I did is I shifted priority that if this machine is streaming, it gets 90% of the bandwidth on the upload. This gets priority 90% of the time. Because I have a 35 megabit per second pipe, 29.9 megabits goes to this machine, leaving about 3 or 4 megabits overhead. So, we should be good moving forward.
Estimates state that millions of users have stopped using OpenAI services. A recent Quit GPT Instagram post has more than 36 million views, and its organizers say that more than 2.5 million people have taken action, either by cancelling subscriptions, sharing boycott messages on social media, or signing up via quitgpt.org. The discontent spilt out into the real world, where a protest took place in San Francisco.
I'll have some documentation for what I did on the GitHub.
GPT has got to go.
So this story isn't over. At the time of writing, Anthropic is back in talks with the US military. This is probably an effort for the company to save themselves from being designated as a supply chain risk. Many are holding their breath, hoping that Dario doesn't go back on his word. In the end, there may be no good guy in this story. We just have to watch this space closely. It's not controversial to say that using AI in war and surveillance is probably the worst possible abuse of the technology. With all the data about us online, a future government AI running purely on massive government hardware could have no problem analyzing a population in real time. Using AI as a surveillance tool reads exactly like a fiction novel with totalitarian techno-feudalism themes. All that's missing is for the government to know exactly who everyone was online, like a digital ID or something like that. Good thing that that's never happening. But it's not all bad news. There's some practical things that you can do to protect yourself from this future. This is not a sponsor, but the number one thing I'd say to do is honestly get yourself off data broker sites. There's a bunch of ways to do it, so just Google it.
Data collected by private firms.
I've been saying that for years. Data removal services, definitely. I've ranked a few over the years.
Having it
Don't know why I said it with an accent.
Analyzing it in mass via AI. That actually isn't illegal. It was just never useful before the era of AI.
Remember, the US military surveillance contract wanted to analyze geolocation, web browsing, and personal financial information purchased from data brokers. If you're not on the data broker networks in the first place, your risk is reduced. But next, it's clear that we need laws. Sign petitions, talk to people, get the story out there that we don't want this. I'm not even an American, and it's clear that this isn't a good direction for that country or the rest of the world, and this kind of thing is already spreading. Even in Australia, many of us don't know that Palantir has installed surveillance systems in Coles supermarkets. It's not hard to imagine AI being tacked onto that system, and then eventually in 5 years being rolled out wherever public cameras are. If the Meta Ray-Ban glasses scandal is anything to go by, those cameras don't even have to be public for us to be monitored. Anything from going to the toilet to undressing is fair game to train Meta's AI.
Yeah,
but
it's
even
true,
if you
it's weird.
don't own the glasses, there are plans to use them to identify you in public.
5 years ago, Facebook...
So, at work, they're actually talking about banning those at work. And I've talked to several other workplaces. They are actively talking about banning smart glasses in the workplace, and I am 100% for it. There is an application, spy glasses, I've been playing with in my graphene phone. I've been taking around with me when I go to work to see if I spot anyone. I haven't found anyone with it yet. So that's why I haven't made any content on it, because I don't just want to say, hey, go and use this app to find, people. I want to actually see if I get any hits on it. I don't know anyone that actually has any of the smart glasses, because most of the people I know are kind of weirded out by it. And I don't understand why people are so comfortable with smart glasses, because I've always had the thought process of, why would I want to get glasses that may potentially be reviewed by another company for my most intimate moments? And that's been confirmed. There are people in centers that are seeing credit card numbers, very intimate moments and things like that. But yeah, I'm not a fan of these smart glasses.
Shut down its facial recognition system for tagging people in photos. Now, according to the New York Times, they're bringing it back inside Ray-Ban smart glasses. The feature is internally called name tag. A wearer looks at you, and Meta's AI identifies who you are.
You want your glasses to spy on you when you
public
pee?
Meta profile
No
could
king
potentially
shame.
be identified.
Hey, look, if you're into voyeurism, by all means, but the other thing I don't like about this whole idea of smart glasses is the whole idea of recording without consent. That's going to be a real issue at DEF CON, because we are very much into asking people's permission when you record.
And in 2024, 2 Harvard students already proved the glasses can identify complete strangers using third-party software. Meta sold over 7 million pairs last year. An internal Meta document obtained by the Times says the current political environment is good timing because civil society groups would have their resources focused on other concerns.
Growing up as a millennial, I'm unironically starting to think that the iPod was the last mainstream technology product that purely served the user. I'm half joking, but sometimes we have to
I
look at
really
the
think
direction
the
we're
same
going
thing
and ask
too.
ourselves, who is this really serving? AI was supposed to make our lives easier and more convenient, but it speedrun its way straight into the worst use case, war and mass surveillance. Now, in an individual case, AI can make life more convenient. And if you've found a way to use AI sensibly to make yourself more productive, great. But we have to look at the big picture here on aggregate. In the wrong hands, this technology can be catastrophic. And in short, that's why I decided to make this video. It's a bit spicy, but I think I just needed to speak up and spread awareness on what's coming. It's fundamental for that to happen first, before any widespread action can begin. Anyway, so what are your thoughts about all of this? Were you aware of all of this stuff going on? Or was this news to you? That's about it from me. My name is Dagogo, and you've been watching Cold Fusion. And I'll catch you again soon for the next episode.
Yeah, I was kind of aware of a lot of that stuff going on, but yeah. Next video, Han shared this as well. All right. The West is in trouble from abroad in Japan. Han shared this video. Let's see what this one's about.
China's kung fu robots are a wake-up call for the West. World terrified of humanoid Chinese robots. Who's laughing now? Can the West recover from China's knockout blow? Whoa. What a load of rubbish. Chinese robot propaganda nonsense. Let's take a look at this, shall we? Let's see what's really going on. I mean, look, they're just dancing. Anybody can dance like that. All right, they're doing some backflips. I can do that. I can do it. It's not as if there's a massive weaponized sword-wielding robot. Oh, shit. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what beats a sword-wielding, somersaulting robot. Battery life. Oh, they can switch out their own batteries on the fly and load themselves into a crate for battle.
Yeah. Like they haven't seen Minority Report. Oh, that's gonna be great.
Yeah, I think we might be fucked. You know, when you were at school, there was always that one kid who made you look bad because they always did so much better, made it look so easy. The teacher would always be like, oh, why can't you get good marks? Right, Scott, why can't you be good? It made losers like me wonder why I ever bothered at all. Now imagine that, but on a geopolitical scale, and you get China, here to make a mockery of us all. Take the UK for example, and the time it's taken for the UK to decide whether to connect its first and second biggest cities with 225 kilometres of high-speed rail. A process that quite literally got held up by a bat in a tree. China's gone and built 50,000 kilometres of high-speed rail. 225 kilometres, 50,000. It's not even close. What about fusion energy? Humanity's last hope. In the south of France, dozens of nations, including China, have joined hands to build ITER, a colossal facility expected to cost $50 billion that will hopefully crack open the secrets of fusion energy for us all. Predictably though, it's significantly behind schedule and over budget, and in the next 10 years there's a higher chance of me personally unlocking the secrets of the universe using this laser pen and this bag of dirt. Observe. Oh my god.
The hell?
It's actually happening. I've discovered the secrets of fire. Meanwhile, China got a bit bored, demolished a mountain, and built what can only be described as a gateway to another universe. A building so spectacular in size and scale that in the UK it would have taken 8,000 years to get planning permission because it might get in the way of a blade of grass. And while most developed nations are struggling with a housing crisis because they're not building enough houses, China accidentally built too many cities to the point they've had to quite literally demolish them.
Yeah, China has a weird phenomena of something called ghost cities. I was watching something a few years ago. I looked like a full drink in that, didn't I? Where basically they like recreated like little like America, little Paris, like that little Eiffel Tower, things like that. And these cities are like massive, but barely have anyone live in them. It's like weird that they were able to build all these cities up. Yeah, it's a weird conundrum. I mean, weird juxtaposition to what we have in the West, where Americans can't find enough housing, affordable housing.
So seeing kung fu sword-wielding robots is the fucking icing on the cake of geopolitical mockery. The West, I've got to stop dropping that, the West outsourced the physical world long ago, and now we'll pay the price for that. It also doesn't help that while videos of backflipping robots go viral, and the skyline of Chongqing looks like a cyberpunk wet dream, over here I read daily news stories like, my friend did a line of asbestos. To get the boat ready. But look, let's slam on the brakes here because we've gone a little bit too far. Building and demolishing cities, after all, seems a little bit
My friend did a line of asbestos.
Meanwhile, the mantra of move fast and break things doesn't really work when it comes to national infrastructure. I was very impressed when I rode the bullet trains in China back in 2011. And then several weeks later, that train tragically crashed, derailing and taking the lives of several dozen passengers. Heck, 5 years ago at Christmas, I received the ultimate Christmas gift when I discovered that my beloved bath mat was made out of asbestos.
Wait, what?
It had been made under rather dubious circumstances in a Chinese factory. I mean, really, I should have shipped it back home. Could have chopped it up and let the masses snort it for fun. It's clear the West looks upon China with a sense of fear, envy and awe. And in a way, it feels like history's kind of repeating itself, with the same techno-orientalist nonsense that Japan faced in the 1980s, back when there was a sense Japan was about to take over the world. So having outsourced all of our manufacturing to China, are we really about to take a backseat in the realms of science and technology? Or is it all being grossly exaggerated by a fearful Western media? It's something I want to explore, and humanoid robots is actually quite an interesting way into it because of the striking parallels, almost 40 years apart. Now you might be thinking, hang on, whoa. Listen, dickhead, what right have you got to discuss robots? And the truth is this, not only are robots the secret reason that I moved to Japan in the first place, but I'm actually an expert on the subject because I'm one of the few people in the world who have fought in a real-life actual robot war.
Wait, Oh, right. I forgot he did that.
Was one of the biggest TV shows in the UK, in which scruffy working-class men took their children's inheritance and set fire to it on national television. And unfortunately for me, my dad was at the front of the queue. When I was 10, he took all his earnings and built a 72-kilogram monstrosity using a dustbin lid and a pickaxe, like a sort of crappy Tony Stark. The robot was called Kilotron. Jeremy Clarkson loved it.
I enjoyed that.
And somehow, in Series 2, it actually came in 4th place in the entire competition. To this day, I have no idea how that was achieved. But as a kid, I got to control the axe on national television and gleefully smash it into another robot. And in fact, the last time you can see me smiling in any photo was back then in the year 2000, right before things reached their unfortunate and inevitable conclusion. Because the truth was, the game was rigged from the start. You see, while the working-class contestants were building their robots with pocket money and duct tape, the BBC took license fee money and spent it on a series of terrifying, indestructible robots crafted with chainsaws and flamethrowers, the most terrifying of which was Sir Kill-A-Lot, a 750
I remember that.
Robot so obscenely brash and bold he had been knighted a Sir. And in the heat of the battle, while our robot got hopelessly stuck, Sir Kill-A-Lot rolled over, picked it up as if it were a bag of feathers, and roasted it over an open flame like a fucking chicken. Do you know what it's like seeing your birthright get flame roasted on national television? You know what that does to you? As I watched that bright pink atrocity go up in flames, a piece of me died that day. Since that day, I swore revenge on the BBC, infiltrating the organisation at every level, befriending employees past and present, quietly biding my time. And in my desperate quest to build my own killer robot, I turned my attention east to the land of robots. And, well, back then, that meant Japan. From the ashes of World War II, Japan experienced an economic miracle that turned the country into a technological powerhouse. Between the mid-1950s and the early 1970s, Japan's economy grew at an average rate of 10% every single year. In 1964, the debut of the Shinkansen must have seemed like genuine witchcraft. By 1980, Japan actually overtook the US to become the world's largest car manufacturer, and soon just about every household item was made in Japan. I love looking back at 80s movies because that fear of Japan is baked into the films, whether it's Weyland Yutani Corporation in Alien, Nakatomi Plaza in Die Hard, or Back to the Future when Marty McFly is fired by his boss, a man known only as Mr. Fujitsu. It seemed like the future very much belonged to the East. And amidst this backdrop of breakthroughs, Honda pioneered humanoid robots as early as 1986. By 1993, they built the Honda P1, which looks like something out of the Terminator, almost 20 years before Boston Dynamics started showcasing their own robot called Petman. Like, it's easy to forget just how impressively far Honda took this technology. By 2000, they built Asimo, and much like the bullet train,
I remember that.
Temporary symbol.
That was like a big deal. That and the giant, real-life Gundam thing they had for a while that I've always wanted to see.
Of Japan's technological prowess that lasted throughout the 2000s. I'll never forget the day that I saw Asimo. It was at the Tokyo Future Museum in Odaiba, Mirai-Kan, and he came out and he ran across the floor and he kicked a football. It was all a bit trippy. I thought there was like a kid running around in the suit because it didn't look real. It seemed at the time that Honda were very much onto a winner. And while fears surrounding Japan's takeover of the world sort of subsided after the bubble burst in the 90s, it managed to hold on to that image of being a futuristic country at the forefront of humanoid robotics. And many of my earliest videos on Abroad Japan were actually kind of about the subject. From the ill-fated robot restaurant to the robot dinosaur hotel chain, Henna Hotels, where a bilingual robot dinosaur awkwardly failed to check me into my room. Not to mention SoftBank releasing its very own Pepper robots, which you can interact with at a cafe in Shibuya. And look, they're fun to look at, but after about 5 minutes you realise the awkward truth. They're bloody useless.
Well, fun.
And unfortunately, while I wanted to love the robot dinosaur hotel concept, it soon became clear the robots themselves were a bit bollocks. To the point Henna Hotels admitted they'd gone a bit too far and dialed down on the robots. Because there's nothing worse than wanting to go to bed while a robot velociraptor awkwardly flails around in front of you for 20 minutes. But what about Asimo, the future hope of Japan? Well, after millions of dollars of investment, Honda took it to the next level. Oh wait, no they didn't. They gave up on it. They gave up on it.
Wait, is that why we never saw anything from it?
Stuck it in a box, replaced in the museum with a robot seal, and whatever
Wait,
the
what?
hell this is. Today, the only robot you can interact with in Japan that's practically useful is an automated trolley that brings you cheap hamburgers in Gusto.
Okay, so that I've actually seen that some hot pot place here in town actually has one of those. So when you actually order your food, it actually comes out with the drinks and stuff like that. That like tripped me up when I saw it. I was like, that's awesome.
To be fair, it gets the job done. It's pretty good. But let's be clear, I'm not writing off robots. I'm writing off humanoid robots. Many of the world's biggest factories are run by automated machines to an impressive and almost terrifying degree. And I've come to realise the sad truth about humanoid robots, that they're not actually the future at all. They're very much a relic of the 20th century. Take Boston Dynamics with Atlas the robot. It's been at the cutting edge for the last decade, yet they've been passed around companies like a Bong, Google, SoftBank, Hyundai, and nobody really knows what to do with them. They're just there. There's been no mass market application.
Yeah, Boston Dynamics has kind of been all over
to bring
the
the price
place.
down to an actual manageable level. The truth is, there's a sort of paradox about Android robots. For them to be genuinely useful, they need to be intelligent, agile, adaptive, operate independently. And by the point they're that good, would you actually ever want one living in your home? A robot that could snap you like a fucking twig in your...
No! I've seen Orwell. I've seen Terminator. I've seen iRobot. No. No.
Sleep. Last year, a company called Neo launched their product designed to help you with housekeeping. But after it was revealed the robot had to be controlled externally by a human, the appeal of the product was very quickly lost. It's a terrifying privacy invasion speed run with physical consequences thrown in. Would you want them walking down the street, living in your home, looking after your cat? And while these robots would be perfect for sending into space, going into a disaster zone like Fukushima, outside of that, it is genuinely hard to see a real use for them. Even in the battlefield, I'd much rather face one of these than I would a fleet of drones, which can fly at rapid speed, come out of nowhere, and cause untold destruction. And while I remain unconvinced they'll be useful around the house for the foreseeable future, maybe I'm completely wrong, because China's biggest hurdle is the same one Japan faces. Robots were often spun as the solution to Japan's declining population. And while the cost of creating robots that were intelligent enough and agile enough was ultimately too prohibitive for Japan to pull off, China faces the exact same problems, but is now putting its money where its mouth is. The Chinese government is going all in on this, like they did with EVs, like they did with solar panels. The National Development and Reform Commission announced a state-backed venture capital fund worth $140 billion over the next 20 years. On the cusp of a population that's about to decline dramatically, a workforce of robots could be the key, and the progress they're making this early on would suggest that they might actually pull this off and finish what Japan started. After all, a country that can cheaply produce humanoid robots on a mass scale that can seriously take over human labour would have a ridiculous economic competitive advantage. It is a real possibility that Western economies would do well not to ignore. But the ultimate punchline of techno-orientalism is it's not really about Japan or China. It's entirely about us. It's the projection of Western anxiety and guilt, because subconsciously we sort of feel like we've given up, you know. And it's not hard to see why that feels like the case, especially when it comes to places like the UK. In the 1950s, the UK gave the world commercial-scale nuclear energy. In the 1960s, we built the Harrier, and the world's first supersonic airliner, admittedly with a little bit of French help, quite a lot of French help. Imagine humans could wake up in London, trudge through the rain, catch a magic airplane that flew over the Atlantic Ocean at Mach 2, and then sit down in New York.
I've always wanted to fly in the Concorde, but apparently they were so expensive.
My grandparents' house in South London was directly beneath the flight path of Concorde. And I'd hear the roar of the engines, the windows would like rattle, and I'd run outside to see it, and feel a sense of inspiration that I've never quite had since. In the late 20th century, the UK government gave the world nuclear energy and supersonic travel.
R.I.P. the Concorde. Yeah, do you know how great it would have been for us to still have intercontinental travel that would, you know, be that quick, where I could, be able to go overseas in only several hours. There's a company that's trying to bring back supersonic flights. Yes, there is a company. The only issue is supersonic flights have been banned over land. So it would be like one of those, like, it's slow to take off kind of things. And then it would ramp up the speed once it's over the ocean. But that would be great. I would, if that were the case, it would be so much easier to travel because you wouldn't get jet lagged as much. Imagine that. Like, I could fly from here to Portugal, and the longest leg would probably be, like, I'd probably have just as long as of a layover in New York or Jersey or Atlanta as getting there from where I'm at to, yeah, you talk like an overall flight of maybe 9 to 12 hours. That'd be insane.
21st century, the British government's achievements include cancelling a high-speed train, forgetting to build enough nuclear power plants, and making laughing gas a Class C drug. Ah yes, such bountiful inspiration for future generations. If robot wars did exist today, it would be called prompt wars. People would sit on Claude, prompting interesting ideas for robots, and then engineers would sit around waiting until their prototype was shipped over from Guangzhou. Still, this age belongs to the digital world, and in that realm, the West still has something of a comfortable lead. If not for American companies pioneering AI, if not for Dutch companies building ultralithography technology that makes the chips possible, or British companies developing advanced jet engines, heck, for all the bluster and scaremongering, the West still does some pretty incredible mind-boggling things. But I do worry we are losing something by outsourcing the physical world elsewhere. We don't need useless backflipping, sword-wielding robots, but we need to remember the simple joys of building things with our hands. We need to encourage the next generation to remember what that feels like. I'm not saying we need to bring back Robot Wars and Concord, but what I'm saying is we probably should, because then I can get a pastrami sandwich in 3.5 hours. At the end, I'm kind of happy that it's gone, because I know douchebag content creators like me will probably make videos riding Concorde around all day, and seeing it being turned into a prop for dickheads is just as unthinkable as the loss of the machine itself. But what do you reckon? Do you want an android robot in your house? Do you think the physical world matters? What I do know...
I'm one of those dickhead content creators.
is that leaving a like on this video matters, because then I'll make more videos. I promise. That's how this works. It is good to see you all again. It's been a while, because I've been off writing yet another book that nearly broke me. Coming soon. As always, many thanks for watching Abroad in Japan. I'm off to, well, go and smash up Sir Kill-A-Lot with a baseball bat. Finish.
Okay. So, next thing, we got an article here from Kara. Whistleblower claims ex-Doge member says he took Social Security... Well, Social Security data to new job. Oh, that's great. Hooray. And, of course, I got this frickin' pay window here. Just make me have to get ads, because I'm not paying you several bucks. I'd rather watch an ad than pay for this shit. No. No. But yeah, Doge taking data does not surprise me at all, knowing a lot of the things that we did, where they apparently were breaking protocol with a lot of things, triggering a lot of the IDS, IPS alerts and things like that. But yeah. Yeah, I'll have to dig into that some more, too. And what's this that Vampire shared?
Your crappy RAM might be what's causing your Firefox to crash. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to fix it in this economy. The devs over at the Red Panda published some data on what user crash reports are showing them, and the culprits are surprising. Up to 15% of the 500,000 crashes reported last week alone are potentially due to bitflip issues. Bitflipping is most famously what got that...
The fix is error correction code memory. So, essentially, this is something that I wish was standard, but it's not. So, actually, let me grab these other sticks here, because I don't want to unwrap those. I got these other sticks here that I can show better. So, the fix really is error correction code. So, what that is a bit flip can potentially crash your computer, and they happen every few billion processes or that. It's just something that unfortunately happens. And the way that you get around this is if you look at this stick, for example, you notice how there's an odd number of chips? And then look at your memory stick. You have an even number. This has one extra chip on there for parity. So what does that mean? Well, it stores an extra bit in there to check against it so that it is able to check for errors. And if there are errors, it has logic to be able to flip the bits back. So when your machine is requiring to be up for very long periods of time, mission critical systems, you want to have systems with error correction code memory. That's why my firewall and now my logging server, because it's what my firewall used to be, both run ECC memory. So they have that capability. They're designed to be systems that are up for months, even years, without downtime. So, Linus Torvalds even commented about how we build systems for performance over safety. And this has been one of the complaints there. Now, there's a misnomer that people are saying that DDR5 memory includes ECC. It does not include true ECC. It includes some features that may help correct some situations of bit flipping, but it is not true ECC. There is DDR5 ECC memory. There's additional parity logic that comes into that. But yeah, if I could, I would drop ECC memory in all of my systems, but they are a little bit more expensive. There also is a small performance penalty. Very small. Now, the nice thing is that AMD CPUs technically all support ECC memory regardless of class. Whereas on Intel, you need to go for Xeon in order to support it. But with AMD, you do need to make sure your motherboard supports it as well. So that's the unfortunate issue when it comes to that. Okay, so let's continue on.
Mario speedrun record, but it happens all of the time on computers due to non-cosmic particle reasons. Heat problems, bad electrical flow, age, defects, and more are all culprits in causing bit flips on computers. Servers get protected from this with their ECC or error correcting code RAM, but that's not the case on normal pleb RAM that's in your laptop. Firefox says that they're actually shocked the figure is this large, and it dwarfs all previous estimates that they saw regarding the problem. Now, this could just be strange reporting details, and it could be just ordinary run-of-the-mill issues as well. It doesn't have to be from older, lower quality RAM kits. Or, you know, the sun's mad at us and really trying to corrupt our computers.
It's a possibility too. Alright. Next up, Abby had a video The story of the THX Deep Note and why it's so loud.
Picture the scene. You've loaded up on your favorite cinema snacks, your parents letting you get the large drink instead of the medium. You enter the theater and fumble around in the dark trying to find your row number, before awkwardly squeezing past the legs of the people in the aisle seats. You sit down as fast as possible to not block the view of the people behind you and get comfy. The trailers are alright. There's a couple of films that look like they'd be fun. And then, this.
That is so trippy to hear with headphones on. I've never heard that with headphones on.
Of cosmic proportions.
Like
I'm sure many people can remember this experience of being blasted in the ears by the THX sound, and apparently many people also find this sound quite terrifying. We're going to dissect the sound and uncover the reasons why it has the effect on people that it does. But first, let's take a look at why the sound even exists in the first place. The year is 1980. Big hair and spandex are in, and George Lucas is gearing up for the release of the second Star Wars film, The Empire Strikes Back. While scouting out theaters for the premiere of the film, he realized that a lot of the theaters, even the most well-known ones, had issues with their picture or sound quality, which meant that moviegoers wouldn't experience it as he'd intended. Luckily for Lucas, he'd already put in place a plan that would help him overcome this. Lucas had set up various research groups inside his production company Lucasfilm to help him push the boundaries of movie production. There was a graphics group which ended up becoming Pixar, an audio division called Sprocket Systems that included the legendary sound designer Ben Burt, and a computer research group,
Pixar came out
which we'll come back to later in the story. So he then tasked audio engineer Tomlinson Holman with putting together a set of standards for movie theaters, from the acoustics to the speaker systems, which if met would result in high quality and predictable playback of the movie's sound. And thus, THX the company was born, taking its name from Lucas's first film, THX 1138, and mainly responsible for certifying that theaters met those standards. When the release of Return of the Jedi came around, Lucas used his rockstar-like influence to demand that theaters be THX certified or risk not being allowed to show the premiere of the hugely anticipated film. And to demonstrate what THX sound systems were capable of, Lucas commissioned James A. Moorer from the computer research group I mentioned earlier to create the infamous THX sound, officially known as the Deep Note. The Deep Note consists of two main sections, starting with the noisy, chaotic and brooding first section, and then slowly converging to a big D major chord spanning over 5 octaves. What's remarkable though is that although there's a musical score for the sound, that came later. The sound was originally created by a bit of code that controlled a digital signal processor and told it what sounds to play over time. In total, there are 30 voices that start off at random frequencies in the 200 to 400 Hz range and move around randomly until they all start moving towards their predetermined destination note as part of the final big chord. And because there's randomness in which frequencies the voices start on, as well as how they move around, it means that each time Moorer ran his code, it would result in a slightly different performance of the sound. The brief that was given to Moorer was to create a sound that comes out of nowhere and gets really, really big. And we can probably all agree that he achieved it, but what exactly is it about the sound that scares people in the first part and makes it sound so big in the second part? We're gonna dive in a bit deeper and find out, but
that you're baked or in an altered state of mind when you're watching it. Or at least that's how it was for me in high school.
first, I want to ask you whether you thought the THX sound was loud and scary, and if so, why you think that is, or whether you thought it was just epic like I did. Let me know down in the comments. Okay, let's now dive in. Moorer says that when he heard the brief, he immediately thought of pipe organs, and in particular, Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor. The vibrant harmonics of the organ,
sound like Bach,
coupled with the deep bass from the pedal note, leads to a thick sound encompassing a wide range of frequencies, which helps us perceive the sound as being bigger and richer. And although Maurer ultimately used a synthesized cello sound for the deep note, he used the same idea of a thick, rich chord spanning the entire audible frequency spectrum in order to make it feel huge. But that's not all. There are a few more reasons for why this chord sounds so big. The first one comes from another inspiration for the deep note, a track that also inspired the Mac startup sound, which we also happened to make a video about recently, Day in the Life by the Beatles.
Okay.
The idea is that the chaos and dissonance of the orchestral section makes the sweet major chord that comes after it sound even sweeter due to the contrast and the sense of resolution that it provides. And similarly, in the deep note, the chaos in the first section, as well as the fact that our ears can't pick out any discernible harmony, means that the major chord, one of the most stable sounding chords in music, gives us the sense of release that our ears are craving. Without this duality, the major chord likely wouldn't have sounded as big and epic as it does. And in a way, it could also be a cheeky analogy for how movie theaters sounded before and after they became THX certified. Another reason is to do with how the voices are used and what they do once they reach their destination pitch. If you got 3 violin players to play the same note, you would get slight imperfections due to the slight timing and tuning differences, which leads to what's called the chorus effect, making the note sound fuller and louder. However, computers can reproduce these notes perfectly, and so you lose the thickening effect of chorus by default. Take a listen to a note played by multiple voices, first playing the exact same frequency, and then again with each voice slightly detuned, and see if you can hear the difference. To get around this, Maurer programmed each voice to drift in frequency a tiny bit, even after reaching its destination note, so that multiple voices playing the same note.
You know what's wild knowing about audio engineering in the 80s and 70s? Like, it was real engineering.
And the last one is a bit of a niche and interesting one. These days, instruments tend to be tuned such that an octave is divided into equal steps in what's called equal temperament. However, this results in complex frequency ratios between the root note and other notes. And a set of alternative tuning systems called just intonation strive instead to keep the frequency ratios between notes quite simple, like the fifth being tuned to an exact 3:2 ratio with respect to the root note. The argument is that this results in a purer sound, as these simpler ratios are found in the physical world, like the harmonics of a vibrating string, for instance,
That's trippy.
and therefore sound more harmonious to our brains. Maurer agreed, and he used just intonation to tune his big chord. And although realistically, most people wouldn't be able to consciously tell the difference, there's a chance that when spread over many octaves, it sounds purer and grander to moviegoers and heighten their emotional reaction to it. Alright, and now let's take a look at the first part of the sound, and also why you may have been scared of the sound as a kid. The first and most obvious reason is just loudness. It's a loud sound and was probably mixed loudly compared to the trailers and the rest of the movie too, whether it was in the theater or on DVD. This fact was parodied by The Simpsons, and Tiny Toon Adventures.
The audience is now deaf.
It also goes back to the idea of contrast from earlier, and the comparatively quiet and bassy first section makes the loud second section feel louder, making people jump out of their seats. Now, speaking about the first part specifically, we've mentioned that it's quite chaotic. The idea actually comes from what's called a sound mass, a compositional philosophy in which the importance of individual notes or melodies are diminished, and instead they're used as a collection to create interesting textures and timbres. These avant-garde techniques had been explored decades earlier by the likes of Yanis Xenakis, and Krzysztof Penderecki. As you can probably feel, the thick layers of sliding notes with no discernible harmony and seemingly no end really throw off our sense of stability and rhythm. It feels like something is getting closer and you're just waiting for it to get you. This is turned up a gear in the
Reminds
deep
you of a
note,
shepherd's
given that
tone.
the pitches move randomly in the first part, and the slide up to the destination note always takes way longer than you expect every time, heightening your anxiety as you wait for it to reach that stable chord. Of course, all of this has also been burnt into our brains from decades of horror movie scores, in which high-pitched strings are used to convey fear. The thing that really completes this monster coming to get you vibe.
It's kind of amazing if you think about it, how horror movies actually set those tones. If you think about it, that now it's baked into our mind that way.
For me, though, is the way the sound is mixed. In the first part, the sound moves around as a single mass from left to right, almost like a monster searching for its victim. It then seems to pause, and you can feel some notes sliding downwards, while some other high notes start to emerge elsewhere. The monster has just seen you. And then, all of a sudden, the whole thing seems to speed up, with the low notes plummeting to the low octaves, and the high notes in the middle rocketing up both in volume and pitch. And now you're f***ed. If you've only ever heard the deep note on your TV, then I really recommend listening to it once on headphones. Because although all the reasons I stated are valid, the mixing just really adds another dimension of anxiety that you can only really get on headphones or in the theater. The THX trailer is not something.
If you've only ever heard that on TV, then you don't get out much.
Blasting our ears for over 40 years now, and it's created an entire generation of traumatized children. And I hope this has been an interesting exploration into why the sound has the effect that it does. We actually have a similar video about the Mac startup sound, so check it out if you haven't already, or watch our other video essays in the playlist over here. If you have other reasons that we didn't cover or have other ideas for interesting sounds to analyze, then drop them in the comments, and I'll see you next time on Mixed Signals.
Interesting. Alright, we got vampire sharing from Kilo Mike 6 Lima Yankee Whiskey Radio. Artificial intelligence on your radio. Okay. This should be interesting. AI. ChatGPT. AX25 inside of there? Okay.
All right, welcome back to KM6LYW Radio, show about amateur radio or ham radio, reimagining radio in the information age. Artificial intelligence and ham radio.
For those of you not aware, I'm a ham radio guy. So, general class ham radio. We like our radios around here.
A funny gimmick or clever technology? Let's check it out this time on KM6LYW Radio. All right, welcome back. Yeah, and that one's probably a repeat, but I think I got it wrong the last time. Well, let's check it out. AI and ham radio. So artificial
nice intro.
Something different to everyone. There's a generative AI. There's chatbots out there. There's Insights AI.
So what's DigiPi? I'm curious about that.
And we're going to look at a couple of those as it relates to ham radio. One, we're going to play with some chatbots over ham radio, and two, we're going to look at some
chatbots over ham radio.
Have AI listen to ham radio for us. Let's get the quiet part out of the way. You'll notice up here there are no wires between the DigiPi TNC and the Kinwood. Yeah, we've got this working over Bluetooth. This technology didn't exist 35 minutes ago. So yeah, totally wireless. DigiPi connecting to a Bluetooth TNC. So look for this in the future in DigiPi. So just
okay. So I'm looking at the DigiPi over here. Okay. This is an interesting little project. Am I gonna have to build this? Okay, so what is DigiPi? APRS web chat interface. Huh. Use Raspberry Pi. Hook up DigiPi to your rig and instantly access. Ooh. Ooh. This is nice. So, oh, ho, 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 ho. It works with my Ham Shack radio. Yep. We are gonna, definitely look at that. Okay. A Raspberry Pi, ideally a Pi 0 2W. Okay. Doesn't need much. This is sweet. Alright, I'm just gonna go off screen here and
just an update on DigiPi.
Totally not
so we're going to use this to do some
buy one of those
networking, and we're going to connect to a bulletin board that has a chatbot, an AI chatbot, amongst other things. So right now it is a Digipeater, and we are going to do AX.25 node network. I'm going to turn that on, and DigiPi is going to go into node mode.
You told me about DigiPi a while ago. Well, guess what? I got ADHD, so you should have known. It also does WinLink for emails. Yeah, this I think is going to be great. Because I was actually looking at ways to attach radio to the Ham Shack. Yeah, this is going to be a nice little gap, I think.
And I'm going to also switch the frequency to over to VFO. So we are on 145050 here. This is a frequency we use in Northern California for a pretty big packet network. And there's a node there called Cool. It's actually up on the hill here. It's also running DigiPi. And I'm going to click AX call, and we're going to connect to it using LinPack. LinPack's kind of like our terminal emulator for AX.25. You can ignore this. It's just from the last session. So let's connect to Cool. And I'm going to say connect. Cool.
It does internet over ham radio too?
Oh, a connection here, and it says, welcome new user. Please use the info and question commands. So this is where we can have a chat room. We got an email interface. We can play Zork here. You guys old my age, you remember Zork. We can play Zork here if we want. But there's a new thing. I don't know if I'm going to add it to DigiPi permanently, so I'm just kind of kicking this around. This is ChatGPT, which is one of the more popular AI chatbots. So I can type AI chat. And we're going to talk to ChatGPT over this Kenwood radio. You can see it's transmitting and receiving. And we're talking to the Cool node. And it says, hello, I am ChatGPT Artificial Intelligence. Type your message and press enter to chat. And I'm going to say, hello. Ta-da. Hi there, how can I help you today? We're talking to AI over ham radio. Another first for ham radio.
So I could hook up my Olama server to that. Oh, we gonna have fun.
Radio. Let's see. Let's ask something that everyone probably wants to know. What is the average velocity of an unladen swallow? Any question mark? Let's see if we got an answer for this. Let's see. What do we got? This is ChatGPT through amateur radio, for those of you just tuning in. Of course, he asks, African or European? More seriously, the movie never gives a real number. Fans jokingly, European swallows' airspeed is around 10 to 11 meters per second, at about 24 miles per hour. But it's a Monty Python gag, not real ornithology. So that's ChatGPT. That's a pretty clever answer. Let's see if we can trick it up here. How long is a piece of rope? Good question. How long is a piece of rope? So let's see what ChatGPT says. So we're transmitting and receiving here on the Kenwood and DigiPi. It says twice the distance from its middle to either end. That is a really accurate answer. I know that, it gave a different answer before. I don't know if I phrased it differently because it remembers context too. That's what's so neat about ChatGPT. One of the answers was it's about 3 inches shorter than you need it. That's always the length of a piece of rope. Too short when you really need it. Yeah, he actually captured that. That's pretty cool. So we can say, what is 2 plus 2, right? And it can do answer all kinds of questions. So this is pretty neat in that, this is like better than having Wikipedia if you want information. Let's say you're completely offline. This will give you concise answers to questions rather than trying to display websites. So I can do add 2 to that. See the context here? And it says that makes 6, right? So it remembers your previous questions and put context to your current questions. So that's it. We did chat GPT over Hammer.
So is it basically just staying in one chat window? Is my question. I mean,
radio. Another first for ham radio. Let's see. We can pull up the menu here, and I can do a hang up. And we're disconnecting from the chatbot, and we're back to DigiPi, the DigiPi node interface, where we can do all kinds of fun stuff. So this is an AX.25 node. We can connect to other nodes, but I just thought it'd be cool to put an AI chat bot here on DigiPi. I'm trying to do a patron spotlight here when I can. And I'd like to highlight Josh, KK6SEN. This was all his idea. In fact, he created a local AI, a large language model that's local, that's not on the internet. So, in a disaster situation and the internet is gone, we still have an AI at Josh's node in Auburn, California. And we can actually connect to his. And this is his killer things. In fact, I'm going to say bye here first. We can disconnect from Cool. And I'm going to connect to Josh's node, connect obnod via Cool. So this station is KM6LYW. It's going to connect to obnode via Cool, which is on the hill, which is where we just were, and K-ban, which is a high level digi. So let's connect to obnod. This is Josh's DigiPi. He sent me an email, says, "Hey Craig, hold my beer. Check this out." And so he added a command to his DigiPi. Of course, he called it AI chat, and I completely stole that from his. So if we type AI chat on obnod, we'll see his instance. And this is a large language model implemented locally. So no internet is being used here, you guys. No, this is internet free. I'm giving you no internet guarantee. We are connected to obnod. All right, come on, Josh. I'm going through 2 digipeters to get to Josh's node, so that's why there's a lot of lag. This little screen here in the bottom is just kind of what's hitting the wire. You can ignore that. So here we are. We are AX.25 AI radio terminal. Right on, Josh. This is a local AI model and fully off grid. So we're gonna give them the standard questions. Now this isn't ChatGPT. Okay, we don't expect that. This is running locally. So we can say how long is a piece of rope? Let's be fair. Let's give them the same questions, right? So let's see what Josh's local large language model is going to say about that. You can see the packets bouncing around. The Kinwind is transmitting and receiving. We see obnod showing up on the digi. So that's why this is taking a little while. If a packet's lost, it has to be retransmitted. In fact, if you want to learn AX.25, that's what's going on down here in the bottom. So you see the ready to receive, packet 2 forward. It's doing that stuff. See, his AI actually got it. This is a trick question, classic trick question. The answer, of course, is as long as it needs to be. But if you're looking for a serious length, that depends on feet, yard, or gazillion knots. Okay, so, hey, that's cool. So bonus for the local language model. They noticed that was a trick question. And then, of course,
you can train the local language models a little bit better.
Velocity of an unladen swallow. I turn up the volume here. That's what packet radio sounds like. Let's see what it says here. You know, if that sounds a lot like the modems back in the 80s, that's because it is exactly the same sounds the modems in the 80s made. All right, the AI has answered. Josh's AI. A question that's been debated for centuries. According to Monty Python, there is no such thing as an unladen swallow. However, a steady swallow cruising speed at about 35 to 45 kilometers per hour. Well, there you go. We did it. All right. All right, so thanks for the help today. We're still talking to AI. So this is pretty cool. This is Josh. Way to go, man. I love it. I don't know, how to do like API tokens or even pay for a ChatGPT account, but maybe we can, if everyone chips into the Patreon account, I can set up ChatGPT and you can all have it available to you on your nodes. I don't know. Let's see. All right, so we're going to say bye to this guy. So we've done 2 command line or chat bots. He says, "You're welcome. I'm glad to assist, even if it's just to clarity, maybe a tiny bit of humor." Have a great day. Love it. All right, so that was AI chat bots. Now, we also talked about interpretive AI. This one's kind of interesting. So Nate K0NWJ sent me an email, and he also says, "Hey, Craig, hold my beer. Check this out. This is where we're going to do interpretive AI, where ham radio actually listens to radio." So if you want to check this out, this is still in development. So this is Node, NODUSRF.com. Okay, Node, and he has net and alert here. I haven't actually logged in here, but what this does is it actually listens to like a SDR device, like an RTL SDR, and it scans through stations and it listens, and it doesn't transcribe things word for word, but it says, like here on 147.3, it says amateur radio operators engage in a discussion about weather forecasting definitions and the role of amateur radio and weather. All right, so it actually listened to that conversation and then gave you a little bit of an insight as to what happened, kind of a cliff note, a little narrative there. Let's see, the Arizona Grand Ham Net convened on a 3-meter repeater. 3-meter repeater, 145.135 with net control N6R. Operators to share personal updates. See, it's pretty cool, right? So, okay, maybe this is cool for ham radio, but this could also apply to public safety as well. You could have this scan your fire and police stations. In fact, he's got that here somewhere. And it'll give you tell you kind of a real-time update as to what's happening around you from a safety perspective. Like here in California, we have wildfires. So the first thing I do is fire up the SDR Play, SDR Plus, and I start listening to the fighter chat in the air command to get the status of wildfires here. But I have to sit here and listen when I'd really rather be running around the house turning on the sprinklers. But hey, Notice Net, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. This could tell me exactly what's happening with the fire, where it is, who's on it, what's the status, containment percent, and it's just an AI insight. This is open source here. You can actually run an Edge node, and you can get the software here. So the GitHub is Node.us, I don't know how to say that, Edge. And you can hook this up to your RTL SDR and scan your local stations.
Oh, nice.
and contribute to the network here for
I have an SDR over there. I could probably hook up to it.
Insights. In fact, there's more stuff still coming here. So this is kind of a cool, way to do ham radio without actually listening to ham radio. And it's like the short attention span version. If you want to, if you just don't have the time to attend a 1-hour net, you can just have AI listen to it for you. All right, AI insights in ham radio. All right, that brings us to the patrons of the channel. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. The patreon.com/KM6LYW. Anything helps. And in fact, it gets you access to the DigiPi SD card image that you put in a Raspberry Pi here. And it does all of this and a whole lot more. All of the APRS modes you can think of, all the AX.25 stuff that we just did. It does WSJTX, slow scan, FLDigi. It kind of turns your radio into a website. You notice I'd accessed all of this stuff with a web browser. I never used any weird Linux commands or anything. So there's a big version and a little version. You just hook it up to your radio. We got a bunch of different radio interfaces. There's an APRS web chat interface that's fun. This is a radio. We've got cool little screens on it that we wrote drivers for. Hook it up to any radio.
Wait, that works for regular Raspberry Pis? Not just the zeros? I've been looking for a project for my Pis over here. The 3B pluses. Huh. Cool. I actually think I may have a use for this. I was looking for... Okay. I can plug a PoE port over there. Nice.
Video that you want, and you can do all of this stuff from the Easy Chair. So here's FL Digi running on a tablet, right? You can do JS8 call, same thing from your tablet. You don't even need to be near your radio. So this is just an example of DigiPi running here. Of course, we got the bulletin board, which we just talked about today, with AI on it. So this goes to...
Yeah, I can sum up 3 hours of sad hams talking about their health issues. Chief, when are you gonna make the Uwu LoRa bot? I thought about it, but I also don't want to clog up the LoRa. And if I ever do, I'm not open sourcing that because I know y'all suck.
The patrons of the channel, guys, again, really appreciate it. Patreon.com/KM6LYW, and it's going to get you access to the DigiPi SD card image, and you are going to be embracing radio data modes and making amateur radio relevant in the information age. Hey guys, my name is Craig, call sign KM6LYW. I'm in California, and I'm clear.
Nice. All right, what's next? When AI gets an innocent man arrested, EWU body cam from Hans. So what's this video about? It's maybe the last video of the night.
So, very, very peculiar. Peppermill has this pretty sophisticated artificial intelligence software that analyzes faces of previous trespassers. And they get a 100% match on this guy who, whenever they trespassed them before, presented an ID that had a different name. They look like the same exact guy.
Right.
Not Mike. I don't know nothing about Mike.
So either he is who he says he is, and he's not have ever actually trespassed, which I doubt because their software is pretty cool, and the fact that he's acting super suspicious. I'll be 100% honest. Could legitimately be you have a doppelganger running around.
Well, unless I've gone crazy, I'm pretty sure it's not me.
Nightmare becomes reality at a Reno, Nevada casino when AI facial recognition technology misidentifies someone, leading to a wrongful arrest and lands an innocent man behind bars.
What the good is the ID then? Why do I even carry that mother?
The following is based on official police records, and the footage has never been seen before until now. Please note that all persons charged with a crime are presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. On September 17, 2023, the Peppermill Casino calls the Reno Police Department to report that a trespasser has unlawfully returned to the casino.
And see, this is the problem that I have with AI, is that I feel like this is unfortunately going to be happening more and more. Because the cops are in just like everyday people. They, could be over-reliant on AI, and it's just a tool.
They report that they have the man in custody, but he's claiming to go by an entirely different name than the man they've previously trespassed. Officer Richard Jagger arrives at the casino at 5:48 a.m.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
How you doing? Oh, thank God you're here.
The man declaring his relief at the sight of the officer is 40-year-old Jason Killinger, who is accused of trespassing at the Peppermill Casino.
So what's going on?
So we got this suspicious alert, prior trespasser.
Okay.
And we made contact and arrested him, and he claimed that wasn't him. And
what does my name
we're just
say
trying
on
to
the ID?
get you guys to make phone call.
Okay.
So what's the issue, you guys? Did he have a different driver's license or a secondary one, or has he got more property than just this one?
Just those effects right there, and that's it.
1 second, pal.
But no other forms of identification. Things in his pocket.
You guys ran this information through our dispatch?
Through your guys' dispatch? No. We ran through ours, comes back as that being who he says he is on his ID, but that's what we went off right there.
Yeah, and this is one of those things, you guys have this fancy software that does all this stuff, so it's like...
Officer, what's your name?
1 second, man.
A few months earlier, a man named Michael had been trespassed from the casino for sleeping on the premises.
All right, man. So this is who you are?
Yes. What your Miss Jagger is your first name or last name?
Last name.
All right, Mr. Jagger. Yes, that is who I am. I drive the semis for UPS. I am not Mike. I don't know nothing about Mike. I'm a craps player here. Look, there's my socks for UPS. Can you please, you got a gun here. Will you please take me out of these cuffs? My shoulders are killing me.
You're going to sit there for a minute, man. So, when he gave you this information, did you guys verify it against an ID, or how does that work?
So, in that report there's an ID on there as well, and we can show you that one.
Okay.
Jason, a long combination vehicle driver, had been playing craps until about 3 a.m. when he decided to leave the Pepper Mill and go to the Atlantis casino. On his way out, he stopped at a blackjack machine and started playing. There, he was approached by a security guard who addressed him as Mike. When Jason clarified that he was not Mike and presented the guard with his driver's license, the guard apologized and walked away. However, as Jason attempted to leave, he was surrounded by security guards and handcuffed. He was told that he was under arrest for trespassing.
My shoulder's killing me.
So that's the ID that he presented. I'll be.
Look at the nose.
Yeah. Huh. Weird. Very weird. All right, let me snap a picture of that. I'll run both names.
The casino's AI facial recognition software positively identified Jason as Michael, the man they had trespassed.
Let me step out this way, I get better reception.
Yeah. The only thing that was weird is to go out and, lift him up.
This is so effed.
Yeah. It's on this. That says he's 5'9", and that says 6'1".
Yeah.
This isn't the only difference between Michael and Jason's IDs. Jason is listed as 7 years younger than Michael and says that he weighs 50 pounds more. As well, the signatures are different. In his report, Officer Jack...
Hold up, let me see this. They don't even look like the same dude. The eyes. The eyes are different. The ears are different. Like, you can just look at it and see these are two completely different people. Like, and this dude's got like a double chin over here, and this dude doesn't really as much.
50 pounds more. As well, the signatures are different. In his report, Officer Jagger wrote, quote, "The associated demographics on each driver's license were fairly similar, with the only major distinction being hazel and blue eyes, which..."
Fire that cop. Fire that cop. If you are a cop and you can't tell the difference between this guy and this guy, I cannot trust you on the stand. I don't know how else to put that. If you have to trust this officer to be a credible witness, I think you understand where I'm going at.
which are by their very nature similar eye colors and are dependent upon lighting.
And the pictures are very, I mean, the nose.
So, right, and then we have our new system, our new facial recognition system, and that's what it's telling us. It's telling us that it's looking at it, and it's doing that. And then there was another one that came up when he was at the RTRK, which is one of our better cameras. This is right before we arrested him. We looked at it and said, that's him. And it came up.
100%. Okay.
100% match.
Yeah. So the soft.
100% match. That ain't 100%. Do not trust the fucking machine. The machine's not always right. You are the human. You make the judgment call. The fuck?
We're saying it that it's legit. I'm
right, and it's
so he
pretty damn accurate.
So either he presented a fake identification the first time, or he's presenting it now. Right. Even if he had a twin, it wouldn't be 100% on the facial, right?
I wouldn't think so, but I don't know, because they say twins share DNA, right?
But
well, I guess it depends upon if they're identical.
I've seen identical.
You got frickin' Frack over here. Two frickin' morons that don't know technology talking about AI. Well, you know, even if the twins, they couldn't flag each other. This AI is not the same AI as what's on your phone, and even a phone can flag a face the same way as a twin. It's not infallible. It's a good defense. It doesn't likely do it. But camera facial recognition is not that accurate, especially with your average security camera.
Twins where it's like moms can tell them apart. Right. So it's...
The other thing
Fire this cop. Even moms can tell them apart. Bro! There are many mothers that can't tell their kids apart a lot of the time. Have you not heard of twins playing pranks where they'll switch up on each other?
that kind of made us feel suspicious, or us managers, was right after our officers made contact and they saw the ID that he's presenting today. And they're like, okay, it's not the same guy. He immediately gets up and starts cashing out, running for the door. I'm like, okay, if it really wasn't him, why is he running for the door?
Why is he getting ready to leave?
Jason would later explain that earlier that night he played at the Legends Bay Casino, the Nugget Casino, and the El Dorado Casino before arriving at the Peppermill around 11:30 p.m. He claimed that each time he was up $200, he would move on to a new casino, and just before his arrest, he had made $200. He also estimated that prior to the 16th, he had gambled hundreds of times at the Peppermill without incident. After speaking with the Peppermill employee, Officer Jagger calls to check the police records.
What's going on? I have a precarious situation. I'm trying to positively identify somebody who may or may have or may be using a fake ID. So I've got two names, two Nevada driver's license numbers and all that. If there's a chance I could have you run both and see if any of them come back and maybe send me pictures in an email of what their IDs come back as?
Yep.
Huh. That is super weird. Do you see resemblance in those?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is...
But yeah, they're the 83, 78, yeah.
That's super weird. So I have a feeling these are both the same guy, but he has different IDs.
You are a freaking moron. You are so freaking honed in on the fact that it has to be a guy with different IDs, that it couldn't possibly be the AI falsely flagged the wrong guy, and you just happen to have a guy with enough facial features that the AI happened to pick up on them. That you have a person that legitimately is innocent. Is he gonna sue? Does he sue? Because he should sue.
That's crazy. Because their software here...
Rugrats even did that prank where they changed the bow on each other. Oh yeah, that's right.
They have this facial recognition software here at the Peppermill, and he came back as a 100% match for the character who was previous.
They never come back as 100%. These AI machines never come back as 100%. I have been with enough people who have made these AI identification systems. They have told me straight up, they do not use 100% as a metric, because the problem is there's always a margin of error. They may say 98, they may say 99, but never 100.
actually trespassed.
Yeah,
So this is definitely a weird one. So I have a feeling he's somehow making some fake identification or something, but I mean, if you're pulling them up, then they're legitimate.
Yeah, they're both through the DMV at least. He's somehow able to get them.
With this discovery,
Oh, they're both, he's somehow able to get them. Because it's two fucking people!
that both Michael and Jason's IDs are legitimate, Officer Jagger calls his supervisor, once again explaining that the Peppermills AI technology came back with a 100% match that Jason and Michael are the same person.
Then this guy that they have now detained presents a different ID with a different name, Jason Killinger, and that has a matching photo for him now. I mean, the photos are different photos, but they look like the same exact guy. The only difference is one has a chin goatee. But definitely super weird. So all of these driver's licenses are both valid. So either he is who he says he is, and he's not actually ever actually trespassed, which I doubt because their software is pretty cool, and the fact that he's acting super suspicious. Two, I just have a feeling somehow maybe he's got a hook.
I was just looking up in this. Officer apologizes, admits lack of training. That goes back to another problem that I have. The United States Police Force, they have a serious lack of training. No, seriously. They have a serious lack of training. I've said this for a while. Compare them on the world stage. Okay? Time of training, U.S. police officer. The average police officer is 5 to 6 months, 21 to 27 weeks, with an average of 833 hours of classroom and field instruction. All right, average time to be a police officer in Germany. In Germany, it takes 2.5 to 3 years. Do you see the problem there, chat? I'm not necessarily anti-police. I'm saying I'm anti the current system that we have with police. Does that make sense? 6 months of training leads to issues like this, where people do not understand the law, they do not understand probable cause, they do not understand reasonable doubt, they do not understand that AI is not a definitive way to accuse someone of something. Yep. Okay. Fabricated claims. The episode addresses a response filed by the alleged case. Investigated by the Nevada State Bar. This is Reno's reporting, however. Yeah.
Look up at the DMV where he's...
The hairline is 2 different places on both of those photos. Who carry IDs when the police don't care about your IDs? That's the point. It's like, why bother carrying your ID if the police officer's going to say, well, you know, you look like this guy over here, so you must have made a fake ID. We live in a country where you are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. This guy, this officer, did not have any inkling of a reasonable doubt throughout any of this. He was so certain that the guy had a fake ID.
He's got 2 different driver's licenses that are registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles with different names and dates of birth. So, yeah, I guess.
Oh, it gets even worse. So I think you said this earlier. He was a truck driver for UPS. So he probably has a CDL, which means he has a pretty strict background, a pretty, not background check, but a pretty strict requirements for things like that. And that, as I was saying, as he entered the Pepper Mill, the casino's AI identification software identified him as a 99.9% match to someone previously trespassed. So not 100%, a 99.9%, and they kept saying 100% match. So they couldn't even understand there was a 0.1% likelihood it was wrong. In this case, it was very wrong. And fake IDs that can fool casino security are expensive. Oh yeah, they are very expensive. And the fact that he got IDs, like the second that it pulled up, and it's like, oh, the BMV has an ID. Well, sorry, sir, that's legitimate. I am very sorry for this hassle. You have a good night. That's where it should have ended. That's where it should have ended right now. Instead,
I'll arrest him on that, and then just list him as a John Doe, and then have him booked in for a wins check. Alrighty, well, that solves that.
So, his ID checks out at the DMV, and he says, alright, I'm gonna arrest him anyway.
So you guys got a complaint?
Yeah, well, we got filled out pretty.
And then,
we got the statement and all that good stuff.
Statement already done. Easy peasy. So, right now, because I can't identify you, man, it's weird. Because, essentially it looks like you have two names. I don't know, man. So, I can't identify you. Unfortunately, that means that they can't cite you.
Officer Jagger collects Jason's things, which includes his driver's license, a Peppermill player's card in the name Jason Killinger, and a debit card from his credit union in the name of Jason Killinger.
If you can't be cited, then you are arrested. So
I'm arrested?
Yep, I'm going
to jail?
Yep.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not a joker, man. So you'll be arrested and you'll get fingerprinted up at the jail, and then they'll be able to discern your identity and what the mix-up is with this stuff. I'll be 100% honest. Could legitimately be you have a doppelganger running around, but they are strikingly similar. And
yeah, at this point, I agree that cops should be fired. Originally detaining the guy showed a lack of training. Proceeding to file that arrest showed a lack of all common sense. Yeah, look, I'm not a cop, but I'm a guy with common sense. I know enough about the law to know. Look, okay, you had AI flag a guy. Okay, we have to do our due diligence. Okay, let's check it. DMV says it's legit. Okay, you are who you say you are. Have a nice night, sir. Carry on. Sorry for the inconvenience. That should have been the end of it. All right. Shitty night. But now you effed up. He's gonna have a good lawsuit. I hope he makes a bundle out of this. Because that couple $100 he made of that casino, it's gonna look like chump change. Because now, he has a case against the police department and the casino. Because the casino used a faulty AI system that got him into this mess in the first place. And they couldn't have figured out, like, the security themselves should have looked at his ID at the very least and said, all right, you don't look like the guy. Even then, police come, clear it up. Okay, doesn't look like the guy. Clearly, it is reasonable to assume that the guy had an insider in the DMV to issue a fake driver's license, then got a fake debit card and casino rewards card to make the fake ID look more legit. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, big brain moment here.
Enough. Their fancy AI technology that reads faces. No, it says it's a 100% match.
It did not say it's 100% match. We just read the article. It said 99.9% match, and even at that, that causes a 0.1% doubt. And you were so fixated on that he has to be guilty. This is the problem why a lot of people don't trust police, because there are cops like that. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of great cops. I know a lot of great cops. But the problem is one bad apple spoils the bunch. And this is that bad apple. Because we see these cases a lot more than the good cops that are doing the great things to actually protect and serve more often than we do the, the good things. Because, yeah.
But at this point, our hands are tied because, a reasonable and prudent person would, based off the software, based off the pictures, based off of even your driver's license picture, make the reasonable conclusion
that you are not the same person.
And that all three are the same person, just two different IDs with two different names.
Stop being a cop. Don't be a cop anymore. And for sure that cop should never, ever, ever, ever make it to the level of detective, because, my God, your detective skills, you couldn't find a nail in a shipyard with a metal detector.
The IDs because I have all the endorsements except for motorcycle and hazmat.
Okay.
Other than that, I got all the endorsements.
But that's the thing is
his a CDL?
So that's the thing is it's.
Wait, hold on. Does a CDL require a background check? Holy shit! He's got a CDL! And apparently they require a federal DOT, a background check mandated by the federal DOT and FMCSA. Oh, dude. Dude. This isn't just a typical, oh, your ID went through the DMV. This is, he had a federal background check. Oh, yeah, like, this guy clearly got a fake ID and faked his way through a federal system. Room temp IQ, Celsius. Oh, yeah.
Either someone else is using your stuff or you're using somebody else's stuff. And unfortunately, you look too much like the guy in that picture, so much so that the fancy computer that does all the face scanning of everybody who walks in this casino makes the same determination that my feeble human brain does. So.
Yep, feeble human brain indeed. Please stop being a cop. You have the IQ worthy of only flipping burgers for the rest of your life. And I'm sorry, but that is still being very graceful to your brain power. Because I'm not sure that you would be able to operate a spatula and not touching the oven at the same time.
Okay.
Jason's ID is a Nevada Real ID driver's license.
So it's a CDL and a Real ID license, which means that he had to present federal identification. Oh!
In order to obtain a Nevada Real ID driver's license, a person must present themselves at the DMV with proof of identity such as a birth certificate or a current U.S. passport or U.S. passport card, a social security card, and 2 documents proving Nevada residence.
I can't believe I'm going for this.
Special ed kid is smarter than the cop, yep.
All I want to do is play some goddamn dice and make some money.
Yeah.
I got a check stub from my work.
A check stub?
Yeah, would that prove it to you guys?
Honestly, man,
no.
The only way is, can I get your fingerprint?
Later, Jason would reveal that along with a check stub in his vehicle, he also had a current vehicle registration for his car in his name, a Department of Transportation medical card, a Teamsters Local 533 union card,
Holy
and a
shit!
valid vehicle insurance card, all in his name.
Oh, dude!
Officer Jagger's police report would later state that, quote, due to John Doe having conflicting identification, he lacked satisfactory evidence to reasonably assure me that he was who he claimed to be.
Fry cook! Fry cook! You heard me. The cop is worthy of being a fry cook at McDonald's. That's his next job, because that's all he's got the brain power to ever be. He should never even be promoted to cashier because he's not smart enough to know how to count money, because obviously he can't count past 5. And that's being generous.
It's not me. I don't know what the
Yeah, it's one of those, like I said, man, if it turns out that it's...
7-factor auth isn't good enough. Needed to be carrying passport, SSN card, and high school diploma. Nope, still not good enough. You're gonna need, your grandfather right next to him.
It's not you. It's one of those ones you can call the director and be like, hey, man, your software is made it a critical error.
This is what my tax dollars are paying for?
It's not built for comfort.
What the dude?
It's not built for comfort, pal. Very sorry.
Before he leaves, another officer arrives at the casino, and Officer Jagger takes the opportunity to once again explain the situation.
It's super weird. This poor guy might be, like, legitimately somebody else, and something else. I don't know. It's weird call.
Soon, Officer Jagger begins the drive to the Washoe County Detention Facility.
I'll be honest, I don't know what to think, because usually those systems are pretty good. Like,
right.
We've used those systems in the past to catch homicide suspects.
Sure.
So, like, they're fairly reliable. So if it comes back, you know, one angle on your face, it was 99%. The other one was 100%.
Is that right?
Yeah, so It's like, it says that you're that guy.
Well, unless I've gone crazy, I'm pretty sure it's not me.
Yeah. You seem like a stand-up guy, and it's probably a really terrible case of mistaken identity.
I can't believe I've been arrested. I've never been arrested. Never. Not once. What good is the ID then? Why do I even carry that mother?
Yep, exactly.
That one young security guard, man, like a robot. That's what pisses me off, is because they don't think, you know.
Cop goes by New York State requirements for pistol permits, 4 character witnesses, and a 15-hour training on who you are.
It's like, well, this is what I was taught. Use your head. And then people aren't smart enough to think for themselves. They're just not.
Yep. Fortunately, it's the world we live in. All go.
Look, I've dealt with security in casinos. They're not the brightest. They really aren't. Some of them. Some of them are, you know, pretty nice and decent, but some of them are also, yeah, like you said, robots.
As well, you should be out of those cuffs in the next, hopefully, 8 to 10 minutes.
Okay, good. All because some that looks like me was sleeping in the casino. It's not me.
Despite Jason's continued protests, Officer Jagger hands him off to the jail staff. Jason's fingerprints were soon submitted for analysis.
Best of luck, man.
Sorry. That's okay.
Yeah, so
That's weird.
It's super weird. So it's one of those ones.
Why do we have all the sheriffs and all their faces blotted out?
It's like,
it's kind of weird.
Like, I kind of believe him.
Yeah.
It wasn't long before the fingerprint analysis conclusively established that Jason had been telling the truth all along, and he was in fact Jason Killinger. Later that same day, around 4 p.m., Jason was released from the jail on his own recognizance. The day after his release on September 18, 2023, he went to renowned urgent care Vista, where he was diagnosed with a strain of both the right and left shoulder and contusions on both wrists. On July 30th, 2025, Jason filed a complaint in federal court against Reno police officer Richard Jagger. While at the jail and after his identity had been confirmed, his arrest papers were changed from John Doe to Jason Killinger.
Oh, you effing kidding me?
The federal complaint states that this meant Jason would be prosecuted for trespassing, even though Michael had been the only one who was trespassed. According to the complaint, Jason's charge of trespassing was eventually dismissed. However, he now has a criminal record. According to the complaint, facial recognition technology has led to wrongful arrests in Louisiana, New Jersey, Maryland, and Texas. Many cities now conclude that for an arrest there has to be some kind of secondary corroborating evidence that is unrelated before there can be sufficient justification to arrest. Jason Killinger's case remains on.
We should be going for that cop that had his money stolen by the cop. The other deputies, wow, that's crazy, seemed very unconvinced. This is the problem. Not one officer had the brain cell to just say, hey, you know, his ID showed up in the DMV. He has a real ID. He had all this documentation with him. Huh. Maybe he is who he says he is. But this is what happens when we don't train police enough. Like I was saying, the average time for a police officer in America to get trained is 6 months. The average time in, say, Germany is about 2.5 to 3 years. Is it an extreme amount of time? Yes. But I'll say this. I lived in Germany. Those cops knew their shit.
Going. If you'd like to see select new videos early and help us keep uncovering case files that rarely come to light, you'll find extra footage and unseen details on our Patreon. Channel memberships here on YouTube also includes early access to select new videos.
Damn. That's something else. Alright. Well, it's getting late. I do have work tomorrow. I'm going to try to get these little Raspberry Pi projects up this week. Got my twin gate nodes over there. This will be my new Unifi controller. But the zero trusting project is underway. It's slowly getting built out. I have a screen coming in for the Raspberry Pi, so I'll use one of the Raspberry Pis for that DigiPi project. So that'll be happening. Because I saw you can put a screen on, so I'm going to have a little 7-inch screen that'll hopefully work with it. That'll come in later this week. But yeah, I will be back on stream. Tomorrow is the next scheduled stream. So, yeah, AI and surveillance is definitely not ready. But thank you all for joining me. I think we hopefully have figured out the streaming issues. I've changed the weights in the streaming for the traffic queue. So now 90% of the upload bandwidth goes to the streaming PC whenever it detects that streaming traffic is happening. That should be fixing it moving forward. We'll see. We'll try that again tomorrow. Worst case, we will kick if it happens again. But thank you all for joining me. If you haven't already, make sure to follow me on all of my socials. I am on Blue Sky. I am on Mastodon. I have a Discord, a Twitch, a Kick, YouTube, of course. Follow me on the YouTube. And, of course, join the Matrix and the Discord. Links are on the bio for y'all. Love you all. Stay safe. Happy hacking. If you're on Twitch, stick around for the raid. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow.